big deal. Nobody has to see that.
All right, we're live.
There we go. Oh, we have 2 likes, including mine. So.
What? We have 2 likes? I only have 1 on my screen. Anyway, we're going to try this for a second time now. My dog turned on my CD player and started blasting copyright music over the live. Yeah, that was fun. I didn't realize where it was coming from right away. I'm just like, my computer's making music. Then I realized I couldn't hear Cat. I'm like, oh, and I looked down and yep, it was playing a CD that I had in the CD changer. So he bumped it off of the computer sound and kicked it over to the CD that I had in the CD changer. Do we have anybody in here?
I mean,
I don't think we do.
Oh, do we? Okay, cool.
No, I don't think we do.
Oh, well, I mean, because there's me, obviously. But is there... If it shows 2, then that means we have at least 1.
It doesn't say any.
Oh, well, I mean, it might just be, though, because I've been idle, so hang on.
I mean, you might not have typed anything yet.
I haven't typed anything. Let's just see, actually, are your bots working, too? Because I haven't seen any messages from your bots.
There's a bot.
Oh, yeah, they are.
Oh, wow, I can sort this from live chat, top chat, and then I can also do it so it only shows the people that are donating.
Oh, yeah, you can do that, yeah. The good thing is, I don't understand why. So, if you're on a phone, and you're viewing a live, you can actually see how many people are viewing it. But on a computer, it doesn't show it.
Mm-hmm.
It's weird.
I mean, it says there's 1 viewer.
Yeah, which that.
I'll let Harvey know that I'm on here. He normally.
Meow. Yep. Yeah, I was just sharing that as a post.
Yeah, I'm going to go to my page and let them know. Why won't it let me post a post? I am me. I don't want to boost a post. I want to post a post.
Oh. Okay, I need to figure out... I need to get this thing elevated a little bit.
No, I don't want to create a new profile.
Are you not signed in on your phone?
Huh? I am. It's not letting me actually... Oh, there we go. It wasn't letting me post as myself.
That's weird. I've never.
I got it.
So weird though. Ugh. The one problem with this freaking laptop, because now if I actually, took it apart, cleaned it, it'd be probably okay. But I haven't done that. And this computer, I don't even know if it's ever been cleaned properly. Because of that, but
Is that the one that was overheating?
Huh?
Is that the one that was overheating?
Yeah, I was just saying that.
Sorry, I was typing.
But I was in the middle of talking about that.
Sorry.
Because this laptop is about 12 or 13 years old, to be honest.
About as old as the Alienware I have out in the garage.
Yeah, but your Alienware is probably a better computer than this.
Most likely.
Even though Alienware, for me, I find Alienware to be just, hey, you're paying this much because it has a cool case on it, but realistically, you're getting ripped off.
Yeah, not with what's inside that computer.
Fair.
It was a custom.
Okay. See, that's a little different, but like when you just get the generic
No,
ones,
yeah,
like,
no. It belonged to Luca's godfather, and he's a gamer and also IT, and he had that computer custom spec'd out.
oh, cool.
So it was. This is from like 2011. It was a $3,000 computer in 2011.
Yeah, it's pricey. This would have been, I think, brand new, about an $800 laptop, which is not bad. Like, it would have been a higher end laptop for just a basic sort of laptop back then, but that was so many years ago. Like, it has an i3 in it for reference. Like, it's not. And even at the time, I think they had the i5 out, but it would have just been like just out in it. And it's just one of those things. I mean, like, my dad bought this computer secondhand for, I think it was like $150.
Yeah.
And
well, and I got that one for free because he had bought a new one.
Lucky you. Yeah, I don't think it. I mean,
well,
that's a lie. I mean, my laptop was free, but my laptop is a POS. I can't even get it to turn on anymore. So it's just junk.
Well, yeah, but I mean, yeah, it's lucky me, but I lost the computer that I had hand built that was actually better than that laptop when I got that laptop. Because I got that laptop in like 2016. That computer was already like 6 years old. But I had just got done building a brand new computer a year before that. I lost it in a divorce. So he gave me that laptop so I can continue to edit videos. And it worked okay all the way up until what, like 2018 or 19, when it just wasn't keeping up with the things that I wanted to do. I mean, it still works as a laptop. It's just not very good at video editing right now.
And Harvey's in the chat.
Wait, you couldn't comment before?
I think it was just because I saw it. I think the bot wasn't working for him initially, or the bot was just being slow, and then he didn't think it was working. I think that's what it was.
I don't know.
I get it wrong. I mean, we were also having issues with like the starting animation and stuff like that for this one too. So.
But that's not YouTube. That would have been my Streamlabs.
True. That's true. I mean, yeah. YouTube can be odd with comments, but then again, like, I go live more so on TikTok than I do on YouTube, but and TikTok is a totally different beast, and you have to deal with so many trolls. It's ridiculous, but
yeah, Harvey, we had a technical issue. I went live, and the dog was underneath my desk. And so is my stereo. Also, the main unit for my stereo. My speakers are up here, but my main stereo is down on the floor. And the dog apparently hit the button to start one of the CDs in the CD changer, and I started blaring copyrighted music over my podcast, and yeah, I had to shut shit down real quick. So people got a live preview of Tool for all of like a minute and a half.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't even that long.
I don't know. I have no idea how long it was.
It was like 20-30 seconds max.
Long. Yeah, it was loud. Very loud.
Yeah, that's the one thing, like, he couldn't hear me. That's how loud it was.
It made me jump.
Yeah, see, for me, I'm just like, oh, okay, there's music. Okay, cool. But, like, that's the one thing that I like about TikTok, though, is that you can have live music on TikTok. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But also, like, because on TikTok, it works differently than YouTube, because where YouTube, we run off of, ad revenue, right? Or gifting, of course, too. Where on TikTok, if you're live, the only thing that makes you money is people sending you gifts.
Yeah.
So, it's nothing. Like, I literally, my best live on TikTok, I made 16 cents.
Woo! But then again, that's about what I make off of ad revenue, so.
Like, it's just like, oh my god. So, but that's only if people gift. Like, I can.
Yeah, I mean, like, I can go back through here and I can literally pull up my lives.
Yeah, I mean, normally when I live stream on YouTube, I make a little more than that, but not that much.
The only way I make any real money is off of off of actual, like, donations.
Hey, apparently there's no echo.
Oh, don't know why. I haven't changed anything from the last time.
Yeah, that's wild. That's awesome. And
It just might be that you're not loud enough.
it could be. I mean, I'm not talking as loud as
I mean, it's hard for me to hear you. You're down that low.
Oh, well, it's just one of these things.
And it's not you. It's my end. I have the speakers turned down real low because of the. I panicked and turned the volume down on the computer, thinking that the volume was on the computer.
Okay, that'd be why then. Okay.
Yeah, my computer volume is at 6 out of 100.
Yeah, that's quite quiet. You see, that's one thing. Like, I'm not sick anymore, but I still have a bit of a sore throat. So that's why I'm not talking typically as loudly as I normally do. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I just turned it up a little bit so I can hear you, but hopefully that doesn't pick up the microphone. Oh, so we were supposed to have a topic. I don't remember what the topic was. Somebody had mentioned that we should have a topic about something about Canada. Canadian cars of some sort.
Yeah, so it's basically Canadian variants of American vehicles. And in particular, we can also talk about like Canadian-only brands too in this, because there's going to be a few of those in this. So, as an example, let's go back to the most popular truck ever sold, which is the Ford F-Series. But we can go back to before the F-Series was even born, because that came out in the 50s, or actually late 40s, I should say. But if I'm not mistaken, the Mercury truck started in the 30s, I think. Maybe. It may have been 40s, but it may have been 30s. And Mercury pickup trucks, literally, it's a Ford pickup with a Mercury badge on it. They were only here, and I believe they could be sold in Mexico as well. But mostly here in Canada. And then
Did we have a version of that truck here in America?
Yeah, the Ford F-Series.
Okay.
Literally. You didn't have a variant of it. You just had the Ford F-Series. And the reason for a lot of these this way, it comes down to a couple of different things. Because just like the United States, with their chicken tax on pretty much, it was just to combat Japanese vehicles coming over. Because the Japanese vehicles, other than the quality of their steel, they were a much superior vehicle when it came to like build quality and reliability compared to the American vehicles, right? And
Not to mention, it was probably to deter people from buying them, so they would buy American vehicles instead.
Yeah, and so there was a part of that too, yeah. It was to kind of save, but the main would save American automakers in that regard, because yeah, they saw the threat that the Japanese car companies were, or about to be, because it took a while, but it especially by the late 60s into the early 70s, that's when you started to see it a lot more too. But so Canada.
Well, especially with gas prices at that point, because at that point the Japanese vehicles were more fuel efficient, And with gas prices going up, then people wanted to not spend as much in gas.
Yeah, but the chicken tax, though, came out in the 60s when nobody gave a crap about that.
Right.
And it was just one of these things. Canada had a very similar tax for vehicles that weren't made in Canada. There was an additional tax put on those vehicles. So as a result, we got all these Canadian variants of American vehicles, and some of them are quite unique. But there's, so as an example, we got the Mercury pickups because again, it was to circumvent that. But then we also had Dodge had their own, which was the Fargo brand, and Fargo's because Harvey said it was the 40s for the Mercury, which sounds about right, actually. It was the Fargo that I was thinking of that can date its time back to, I believe, 1938. And basically, they were just rebadged Dodges. There was nothing else different than them other than, it said Fargo instead of Dodge, and then, on the tailgates where it used to emblazon Dodge on the back of it, it would say Fargo like that.
Right.
But other than that, identical vehicles. Now, if we go into Pontiac, because we had quite a few different variations of American vehicles via Pontiac.
Harvey was saying Pontiac in specific, so.
Yeah. Well, because there was the most of those. So, as an example, with Pontiac, we had the Pontiac Acadian, which was our version of the Nova. Basically,
right, I know about that one.
Yeah, swap the front end for a Pontiac-esque front end, and the taillights are slightly different too. The rest of the body and the drivetrain is all Chevrolet.
Does it look something like the Ventura or the what was the other Pontiac that used the Nova? Was it the Ventura and the Phoenix?
Similar, yeah. Actually, it would have been similar. But there you go. Yeah, Mercury trucks 47 to 68. There we go. And the Fargo even, it went from, I believe it was 37 or 38 right up until 1970. And so, but yeah, but what's interesting though is that the Acadian started in 1960, just like the Chevrolet Nova did, right? And those early Acadians look almost identical to a Nova. There's just minor differences. And if you didn't know looking at one, you'd say, "Hey, that's a Nova." But
right.
We also had the the Omega was Oldsmobile.
Yeah, and we have those down here.
Yeah, and we did. Which we had those up here too, the Omega. But then, so another Pontiac that we had was the Beaumont. Which the Beaumont...
Is that the same thing as the Bonneville?
Nope. Beaumont is a Chevelle.
Okay.
You look at them, again, Pontiac nose, different taillights on it, slightly different trim inside.
So that would have been the base model for the GTO. Tempest?
Well, no. It's straight up a Chevelle, just rebadged.
Doesn't even have a different front end nose or anything.
It's a slightly different, like I mentioned, it's a different nose.
Well, that's what the Tempest was. I think the base model of the GTO, because the GTO is a Chevelle. It is.
I guess the body's similar. Yeah,
it is the same body.
It's based on the same thing, but the one thing is when I say this though, because with American Pontiacs had their own drivetrains, while Canadian Pontiacs had Chevrolet drivetrains and frames if they happen to be a full frame vehicle. While the Pontiacs would have been different.
The Pontiacs would have the same. The Pontiacs would have the same frame. The only thing would be different would be the drivetrain, because the Chevelle, the Cutlass, or the Oldsmobile variant, and the Pontiac, they all shared the same frame and body. They might have different fenders on them or whatever, but the body itself is the same. Buick would have had the Skylark.
Depending on which ones, yes. But when I talk about a couple of the other Pontiacs, something like that, and well, okay, Harvey, there is a difference though, because Fargo started making big trucks. They didn't make a Dodge pickup until 37 or 38. And then they stopped making the mid-size trucks in 1970, and then they just made full-size trucks afterwards, like semi-trucks and sort of thing.
I wouldn't beg to differ that Dodge owned Fargo already. Fargo was just their big truck brand, and they just used Fargo to be able to get their vehicles into Canada at a reduced price to avoid the tax.
That's exactly what it was, and like Fargo, because if you've ever seen any of the Dodges, like the big Dodges, and also hi William, they commented, but yeah, so if you've ever seen any of the Dodge, they called them like the big jobs back in the 60s and into the 70s, where that was their like semi trucks and like their 5-ton trucks and their stuff like that. Yeah, see, and that's the one thing, like what Harvey's talking about with the Parisienne, because yes, the Parisienne would have been similar to the Bonneville. Actually, no, not the Bonneville, because that was the Laurentian. I'm trying to remember which Pontiac it was, but it's similar vehicles.
Well, the way GM worked, all of those cars would have shared the same tooling for the chassis and for the body, other than tweaks to differentiate the brands. They all were the same. They all would have been, if they were from that body type or frame type, they all would have been the same body and frame.
Similar.
Catalina, maybe, yeah. Well, I'm saying no. GM is kind of my thing. It would have been the same frame.
The reason why I tell you this is because this actually came from Roy Marco, which happens to own a Canadian Pontiac that's different. They actually used similar frames, but they were modified. Like the American Pontiacs, they were different frames. They were modified and typically heavier duty than the Chevrolet frames were. That was just one of those things that they did to differentiate them a little bit too. Like, as an example, an Impala frame will not fit under like a Parisienne actually no, that will, but like under like a Catalina, right? And those would have been sister cars, right? The Catalina and the Impala, but they did actually have different frames. But also it's because of, again, Pontiac wanted to have it, a little more upscale and a little stronger and stuff like that. It's just, again, Pontiac, wanting to differentiate a bit more.
I don't know, because you can stick a Camaro chassis underneath of a Firebird or a Firebird underneath of it.
Yeah, like I said, some Pontiacs were the same. Like,
the Chevelles, the Skylarks, and the Tempest would have all been the same as well.
It's mostly their full size that was different.
Well, that the Chevelle would be a full size. That'd be a full frame.
Yeah, as an example, well, I mean, it is technically, but I consider like their body on frame and Impalas as the full size.
Chevelle was still a body on frame.
That's true, it was, but I mean, just not as big as an Impala. That's what I'm getting at. But regardless, like even though, like a Dodge Charger from '68, they say that's a mid-sized car when it's bigger than a Chevelle.
Subframes were the X bodies and F bodies. G bodies were full frame, and whatever the Impala, I forget what the letter name for the Impala was. So F bodies would have been your Camaros and your Firebirds. There wasn't a Buick F body, and then your X bodies, which had all of the different brands. They were also a subframe, and then your Chevelles, Skylark, Tempest GTO, and Buick, Skylark, Olds. Olds would have been the Cutlass. They were all full frame cars. At least up until the 80s.
Yeah, because the only manufacturer that didn't do frames throughout the 60s and 70s would have been Chrysler.
Yeah, because the Chargers weren't a full frame car. They had a K frame.
They're unibody.
Yeah, all of them are the Demon, the Dart.
Yeah, like from 1962 onwards, Chryslers were all unibody. Prior to that, everything they made was body on frame.
Harvey says the Malibu and the Beaumont, which Malibu would have been the Chevelle. Chevelle is just a trim package for the Malibu.
Yeah, that is true, actually, and
hold on, I gotta check the dog. You can talk. You talk. I just gotta check the dog.
Yeah, no, it's okay. And that's the interesting thing, though, of like some of these Canadian versions of American vehicles, because like Roy Marco, as an example, like you guys haven't posted in a while, but he actually has a 1956 Pontiac Pathfinder. That was actually born with an interesting motor because, again, they wanted to differentiate, especially in the 50s. It's a little different in the 60s and 70s, where they wanted to have a lot more commonality. But this Pontiac actually didn't have a Pontiac or a Chevrolet straight six. It actually had a GMC 261 straight six in it. But it's literally, think about your Pathfinder as a whatever the Pontiac version of the Bel Air would have been. That's what it is. Oh
shit! What would have been the Pontiac version of the Bel Air? Not a Chieftain.
Actually, no. I think it may have been the Chieftain.
Yeah. I mean, that's the first one that came to mind, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah, and actually, I forgot about that. Yeah, we did have a brand called Meteor, which was essentially rebadged Mercuries for Canada.
Smokey, down.
Like, and Meteor
down.
Existed, I believe, from the early 50s or even late 40s, right up until about, like, around 1970, actually, I think. Maybe 68, somewhere in that range. And when you see one, it's just like, because they look like a Mercury, straight up. But then you really look and go, wait a minute, that's a Meteor. And compared to, like, the Pontiacs, where you know a Canadian Pontiac when you see one. Just
yeah. Your comment earlier about the commonality. Commonality in GM didn't hit until the 80s.
A little more, yeah. There was
at least here in the U.S.
Yeah, there was still a lot of stuff like, yeah, obviously throughout all of their brands, they all had different motors, and a lot of them didn't have interchangeable parts with each other, and stuff like that. And
like I said, frames and bodies were interchangeable. As far as trim options, interiors, technically a lot of them were technically interchangeable, but they all had their own different styling and whatever. Pontiac, other than the Trans Am, were basically identical to. What are you doing, you dick? Stop.
49 to 76. There we go. I couldn't remember the exact years for Meteor. And yeah, it was just kind of a luxury Canadian brand. But like I said, they were just rebadged Mercuries. And it's actually like, so yeah, like I mentioned, the Parisienne, which would have been like your base version of whatever the Pontiac sort of mid-slash full-size vehicle was at the time. But then
you're being a dick.
The Laurentian, which was a stage up from that, and that would have been the same thing as a Catalina, but except for Chevrolet drivetrain, Chevrolet frame underneath. Because the one thing is, like, Pontiac through the 60s, for full frame vehicles, like their full size that wasn't the GTO, they had a wider track on them, a wider frame. But in Canada, we had the narrower frame. Like, it does not interchange at all with American Pontiac. And yeah, it's just something just a little unique in that regard. But yeah, like I said, we had the Laurentian, which was our version of the Catalina, and then getting away from Pontiac, because there was a couple going into even the 90s Pontiac, but we stayed with these. And there's a brand called Epic Cars, which they didn't last very long. It was a GM offshoot where they were basically using rebadged stock cars. And I don't know if Epics were available in the States or not, but I know obviously they were here. I've seen a couple of them. And Epic Cars existed from about 1962 right until like 1970-ish. So again, it wasn't very long. Alright. That's true, Harvey. That is true. But that's the thing, though, is that those wouldn't have been in Canadian-only Pontiac models, though. That would have been, because, like, we still had, like, the Catalina was still sold here, as well as, like, the Chevelle was sold here, and all those different cars. So you could get, you know, their sort of, or, like, the Pontiacs with, like, because we had the GTO.
They're saying blue block Pontiac is, you mean like the stock Pontiac blue, American Pontiac blue, or like GM corporate blue?
No, he's talking about Pontiac blue. And like he's talking about, like, you know, because you could get, because like I said, you could still buy any of the American variants here in Canada. They were just more expensive. Like you could buy a Catalina, you could buy, you know, a Chieftain, you could buy whatever. Like it still existed. And it's kind of interesting, but you know, and there are a lot of different things, like, or just even Canadian only models of just a typical vehicle, because like we can go into the 90s as an example, when GM was a master at badge engineering, especially when it came to Suzuki's own design of the Samurai, because GM got a hold of that design, and the most common one you'll see out there is the Geo Metro. But we even had one that was called the Asuna Sunrunner, which Asuna was a Canadian-only brand as well. They had a few different models, like they had the Asuna Impulse, I believe, and there was a couple others. But like the Sunrunner was literally just a Suzuki Samurai that was rebadged. And we had a GMC version of it as well.
I think you were thinking of the Geo Tracker, not the Geo Metro. The Geo Metro was a little tiny, small hatchback.
I meant to say Tracker, yeah. That's what I meant to say.
And then you also had the Chevy Tracker too, I do believe.
Yep, so of those, there was the Chevrolet Tracker, the GMC Tracker, the Suzuki Samurai. You would have had the Asuna Sunrunner,
and the
Pontiac Sunrunner,
and the Geo Tracker also. I mean,
yep, the Geo Tracker. I believe there's a total of 11 variants across the world of it. It's brutal. And even like here in Canada, we had, I think, 5 variations of it. Where in the States, at least, we were only down to about 3. It's just kind of funny. But like I said, if you see a GT,
yeah, Pontiac had an Opal too, because the Saturn Sky is an Opal, and then the Pontiac Solstice is also the same as the Sky and the Opal.
Yeah, they're on the GM Kappa platform.
Well, it was originally an Opal car.
Yeah, it was so.
The GM bought Opal.
That was just my phone falling?
I noticed. We're having a great view of whatever that is.
That's my ceiling. I caught it, so, you know, just...
Well, you can pick us up now.
Yeah, hang on. I was trying to get stuff. Okay, hang on. There. Okay. Should be more stable now, too.
Well, that, yeah, in the 80s. 85. 85, 86, 87, I think was the last year. They only ran it like 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, well, and don't forget, there actually is, if you want to call, we want to talk about badge engineering. So, if we go into the 90s, Chevrolet actually wanted to get into the Japanese market, and they had obviously a connection with Toyota from the 80s. And so in Japan, you can actually get what was called a Toyota Cavalier. It's literally a Chevy Cavalier that's right-hand drive with Toyota badging on it.
Well, and they have the Ecotech is a Japanese motor. The Ecotech, whatever they call it.
Yeah, the Ecotech, if I'm not mistaken, that would have been an Isuzu motor. A lot of their stuff is in Isuzu. Like, even you go back to the Chevy Love, which was their first, like, mid-size. That was in Isuzu. Even the S10 later on, that was in Isuzu as well. Like, GM didn't actually design it at all. It was Isuzu that did. And it's just a little interesting that way.
Well, I mean, that's like today's electric vehicles. A lot of them were all made by the exact same manufacturer for all of the different major brands. The Dodge cars that are coming out, the Dodge Charger, and a few other ones, and a couple other ones, are all made by the platforms are all made by the same company, and not even by any of our brands.
Yeah, well, like, because, like, the Charger, the Challenger, and the Chrysler 300... starting in 2005 and 2008.
No, I am talking like the EV vehicles that aren't even launched yet. They're all owned by the same company, and it's not even any of our American brands. There's a company out there making EVs for most of the major car manufacturers around the world, not just us American vehicles, and they're all being made by this one company. It's like, it's stupid.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of these things that I get why it saves money. Like,
well, they don't have time. I mean, you got to think about it. You have all of these different companies, and they're all being told they need to make an EV by by XYZ, and none of them have time to do the research and development to be able to get there. So they all had to outsource, and there's really only, other than Tesla, there's really only like one other company that has a production ready EV platform.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's true. Well, it's no different than as an example, the brand new Toyota Supra, right? And the reason why that it's a BMW underneath, it's a BMW Z4.
Hold on. Will says there's a Mazda truck in the '90s that was just a Ford Ranger rebadge. Actually, it's almost. It was a Mazda drivetrain in that truck. With the Ford Ranger also had a Mazda drivetrain.
Yeah, actually, so you can go all the way back to the Ford Courier. The Ford Courier was a Mazda truck that was rebadged as a Ford. The Ford Ranger, right up until about 2011 when they axed it, that was a Mazda pickup truck. Now, the 4-liter engine, that was a Ford design, but the rest of it was Mazda. Just like the S10. The S10 was an Isuzu design, although like the Chevrolet 4.3, that was an actual Chevy motor, but the rest of them, like the 4 cylinders, were Isuzu. It's just similar in that respect. Mazda would have had, because it was the B. You can go back to the 80s for the B series of what they called them. There was the B2000, B2600i, B2200, B2500, B3000, B4000. That's true. You could get a Ranger with a Perkins diesel. Yeah. Very, very rare to find one, though. It's no different than, finding a Chevette diesel. Because, again, a Isuzu diesel. Actually, fun fact, Roy Marco owns one. But it's just one of these things where... And it's interesting with all these different companies of, they were just smooching off each other. And... Well, Harvey... The S10 wasn't a Isuzu. because they actually had even an Isuzu variant of it in the 90s that was called the Isuzu Hombre. I'm pretty sure that the S10 was an Isuzu. Yeah, actually, you'd be surprised of what engines you can get in a lot of these cars, to be honest. Because, like, as an example, the worst engine you would ever want in a Dodge Dakota, you could actually get it, which was an AMC 2.5 liter inline four. In the first gen Dakota and early second gen Dakotas could have this engine, which it worked fantastic if you had like a Jeep YJ or CJ,
Right.
or even a TJ.
I found the company that is making a lot of the EVs for the American brands. It's Stellantis, Stellantis.
Oh, Stellantis, interesting. So okay,
That's who Dodge is using their to platform their EVs, and I do believe Chevy might also be using them.
Yeah, well, so Stellantis actually is Chrysler. That is when they merged when Fiat Chrysler automobiles merged with Peugeot, and all of the subsidiaries of Peugeot owned, they created Stellantis. That was the name. So those EV platforms are probably either Peugeot or Citroën, more than likely. It's just one of those things that's the name that they now use. But like I was mentioning earlier, like yeah, because some of the weird engines you can get in vehicles for a while, like even Lincoln Mark 7, which is a Fox body Lincoln. They were one of the only Fox bodies that had 5 lugs on them as well, and it was the luxury version of the Fox body. The thing is, though, for a few years in the 80s, you can actually get a BMW straight 6 diesel. Which is kind of weird to see an American manufacturer for a BMW straight 6, but it did happen. They weren't particularly, like, they were actually reliable. It's just, they weren't powerful because, like, they didn't have turbos or anything like that, and just a gutless wonder, but it was kind of one of those interesting ones, to be honest.
Yeah. I'm having trouble finding the exact information that I'm looking for. They just give me all of the actual manufacturers, not who they went with to the design and to produce their platforms.
Well, I mean, actually, that should be public information, you'd think, just because of patents and stuff.
But you also gotta know how Google fucking works. It's not like before when you looked up something and whatever, Google's just feeding me whatever is, on the ad algorithm.
Yeah. Well,
Freaking trying to find anything on the internet anymore is so freaking stupid because you don't find the relevant information. You find the stuff that ad wants that Google is making money off of to show you.
Actually, I forgot about that. Yeah, that's true. Which that's the interesting part about the the Dodge Omni, which that kicked off the Dodge K platform. Like the Omni was the first one, which spawned the Charger, the Plymouth Turismo. Even they reused the Plymouth Duster name on the Turismo. And there was a bunch of other ones too. And yeah, I forgot about, because I knew about the Volkswagen engines. I didn't realize they used Peugeot motors though.
It's like the new Toyota Supra.
Yeah, well, like I was mentioning with the Supra earlier, the reason why that the Supra is a BMW Z4 underneath is because it saved on Toyota about $500 million in development costs, and also they were able to put it out 8 years before, 8 years before they could have done it all on their own.
Yeah, people don't realize how long it takes to develop a car from concept to to something that's in a finished product.
Yeah, Harvey, very loosely based, but they are similar though. That is true. Because like you look at an Omni and a Golf side by side, you can see that the Omni was like, "Hey, I want to copy you," because literally it looks a lot like a Golf. But I don't know like how much like were they actually related? Because I've never heard that, to be honest. Like I knew
Has
they had
anybody
some
seen
commonality.
the new 2024 Mustang?
Yeah, I've seen one in person.
Yeah, tell me the back end doesn't look like a Dodge Charger not like the 4-door Charger back end, like the rear fenders, and then the front looks like a freaking Camaro.
I mean, to be fair though, the Mustang and the Camaro have been copying off each other for looks for quite a while.
I don't know. This new one, the new 24. I mean, the front end straight up looks like a freaking Camaro, and the back end looks like a Charger. It's like Ford's just like, you know what? Screw this. We're just gonna copy both of you.
Yeah, to be honest, hang on. There we go. That's better.
I mean, and that's like the last generation looked like a freaking Austin Martin.
You have to really squint for that, but
Not when they first came out. You didn't.
I never saw that, to be honest. Like, even though like I do know that Ford owned Aston.
If you look at like an Aston Martin Vantage or whatever, and the front end of a Ford Mustang at the right angle, they almost look identical.
Yeah, because I've been around a lot of Astons. I don't see it. Like, that's interesting. Like, I really just, like, because I'm just trying to picture it, and I can't. Because what's popping into my head is not that. It's the Ford Fusion, because the Ford Fusion used an Aston grill, or very, very close grill.
Maybe it's a Vanquish.
Yeah, but which Vanquish, though?
I'm looking. Shush. Getting there.
Because of,
Not 2019. We need to go back around 2012-ish.
Yeah, but there would have been like and that's the interesting thing. Like if you own an Aston, especially if you own an Aston V12. What's interesting is, an Aston V12 is just two Duratec V6s put together that are Ford motors. It's quite interesting, and a lot of the parts that are inside the car are also Ford parts. But like I said, Ford owned Aston, and at the same time, they owned Jag. And that's why when the DB7 came out, it looked a lot like a Jag. And they always called the DB7 a Jag and drag. And a lot of people hated on the DB7 because of that. But then they redeemed themselves with the DB9, because that's a beautiful fucking car. And it's still the best looking car of the modern age, I think. Like, there's nothing that looks better than a DB9. Or, like, any of its variants of, like, DBS or whatever. Just gorgeous cars. But, having said that, though, it's, one of these things.
I had the car that it looked like back when that Mustang first came out. No, I can't remember what it was.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's no different than, like, if you go back to, as an example, so when the last generation Viper came out, and I think it was 2012, 2014, something like that, actually forgot about them. So now those did exist in the States, I believe, but in Canada, throughout the 70s, we had our own little sports car, which was called the Brooklyn SV1. Now, the Brooklyns are weird. They have gull-wing doors, and they have a lot of safety in mind, hence the name SV1, which was Safety Vehicle 1. They actually used Ford drivetrains in them, and, they were a neat little vehicle. Not a good vehicle, though, because, fun fact, the Brooklyn didn't use bolts to hold the body together, but rather adhesive. And because they were put together so poorly, over time, that adhesive would come loose. And yeah, the Brooklyn was a commercial failure. It only existed from, I think it was like 1972 to like 1976 or 78. Not very long. They went out of business shortly after. But it was a neat concept, and they thought about, like, because they had to introduce, like, the 5-mile-an-hour bumper into that thing, but they actually did it in a weird way. Yes, actually, that sounds about right. I couldn't remember how long, but it wasn't very long. Like, it was only from, like, 1970, 71-ish to about, like,
Yeah, now they're coveted as collector items.
I mean, they are now, but...
I said now, I didn't say then.
Yeah, because, like, the Brooklyn, when it came out, people liked them, but it was just one of these things where, yeah, and they're not good vehicles at all. Put together very poorly. They had bad wiring in them. The interiors were put together very sloppily. Like, honestly, the build quality of a Brooklyn made a DeLorean look like it was built by Bentley, which is saying something, because DeLoreans weren't put together very well either. Yeah, he knows, he's trying to, so, William, he's trying to find a, whatever Aston that the S550 Mustang looked like.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's a 2015 or when they did the redesign for that generation. The second refresh.
Yeah, see, and that's one thing, the refresh on the S550 was hardly anything.
No, it might just be the S550 in general.
Yeah, because unless you're thinking like S197, which is the generation before, because it did have a refresh in 2011. But, and actually, I forgot about that. So the Brooklyn, actually, early prototypes did have a slant 6 in it, but it just did not produce enough power. But what's interesting, though, is like, because you can actually make a slant 6 make good power. Because actually, there is a really cool prototype car from 1960 called the Plymouth XNR, which it's a really cool prototype. And the one thing is, this little concept car, it produced about 250 horsepower from the slant 6 and revved to 9,000 RPM. It's pretty wild, to be honest. Actually, some I believe could. You might be right on that. Actually, I heard about that. To where the Brooklyn actually could in 1974 get a 360 AMC V8. I have heard of them, but a lot of them only had the 351 Windsor though. But yeah, it's very.
Was
very
the AM? Was the 360 AMC an AMC engine, or was, because AMC normally just freaking snagged parts from all the other freaking, at least here in America, snagged parts from all the other manufacturers.
Oh, they did, but not for their motors. So AMC, their V8s consist of the 290, the 304, the 343, the 360, the 390, and the 401, and it's all the exact same block too. All the internals and the heads and everything interchange between the two, or between all of those different motors, I should say, not between the two. And yeah, like AMC had a 360. And what's interesting, actually, is, so when Chrysler acquired AMC in 1988, they still continued to make the Grand Wagoneer. You know, that big body Jeep that, you know, they had made essentially the same since about 1970 as kind of their luxury variant of the Jeep brand. The one thing is, when Chrysler acquired them, they didn't modernize it at all. They wanted to, or they just kept it the same with an AMC drivetrain with like either it would have had an AMC 360 V8 at the time, and they used that 360 right up until they killed it in 1992, which is surprising considering. Actually, yeah, they kind of resembled a Mustang. I wouldn't go quite that far though, but like I know which one you're talking about. Gorgeous car, and they made the V8 Vantage even earlier than that. It would have been into the 70s as well, into the 80s.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of.
Yeah, just a DB9, you know, or V12 Vantage S. It's the same thing.
Right, but I'm saying you can't tell me that the front end does not freaking. I mean, you got to smudge a little bit, but when that Mustang first came out and it went from the retro style Mustang to that, that's the first thing I thought of when I saw that. It looks like it looked like if Austin Martin would to make a Ford Mustang.
Yeah, I don't see it. Like slightly with the roof line, but that's about it.
Roof line, the way the grille and the headlights are laid out.
I don't see it at all. Because I'm very familiar with both cars, and I've been around them both a lot. Yeah, I can't.
I'm not talking about like in person. I am talking about if you were to look at photos of both the cars. Yeah, they are similar enough in body lines and placement of.
I just don't see it. I just don't. Like even with just picturing both cars side by side in my head, because I can do that easily. I just don't see it at all.
Okay. You don't have to.
Not even the slightest. And okay, 304. See, that makes a little more sense. It was a 304 versus a 360, and then 75 is a 351 Windsor. Yeah, because like and the Brooklyn was weird, very weird looking car, and kind of ugly in a way. But it was that wedge shape, and it had this big garish front bumper on it, and it had gold wing doors. You know, they're quite unique, and like I said, they were a Canadian manufacturer that I think sold some in the States too. But
I mean, no offense with it's not like AMC made the most gorgeous looking vehicles ever.
It wasn't an AMC. This is a Brooklyn.
Right, but I'm saying even with the AMC ones, like so you get the AMC. The Javelin and the AMX, they weren't absolutely the most gorgeous looking cars when they came out.
Are you on crack? Those things are gorgeous.
They're gorgeous now.
They were loved back then too. The AMX was the weirdo though, because when the AMX came out, they chopped the back end off of the Javelin to make it a 2-seater and shaved off about 900 pounds off the weight and kicked the crap out of the Corvette.
Yeah.
And like that one has slightly weirder lines because of that, but I wouldn't say that. There were some.
See, Will agrees with me. 6th gen Mustang looks like a freaking Aston Martin.
Yeah, I just don't see it. Okay, Harvey, make up your mind in the comments. So first he said 360, then 304. No, now 360 again. But yeah, because like there were some really, really ugly looking AMCs back in the day. Like, as an example, when Joseph owned that Matador with the coffin nose on the front of it, that was a butt ugly car.
Etzel.
You had the Gremlin, which I like the look of a Gremlin, but that is an ugly car. Just like the AMC Pacer, again.
That's that round bubbly thing.
And the fun fact about the Pacer, the passenger door is 3 inches longer than the driver's door to incentivize passengers to get into the back.
That's okay. Unpopular opinion: Mini Coopers are ugly.
Which one?
Modern ones.
Yeah, okay, brand new ones, yes, they are.
No. Since the reintroduction of the Mini Cooper,
I don't find them ugly.
I can't stand a single one of the ones that were made that weren't made back in like the 70s.
Well, I mean, the 50s to the 70s ones are definitely a much prettier looking car. I wouldn't say it's ugly.
They're not pretty. They're quaint. They're cute. Back then, today's ones are just ugly. They're stupid. I cannot stand the freaking the instrument cluster design. It just, the whole car just makes me. Rah.
Well, come on. I have driven one of those minis.
No, they're gross. Don't like them.
So a friend of mine, it was interesting, because he came out here and he actually let me drive his car. And the thing is, I drove it from Olds to Red Deer, and it was weird because the speedometer is in the middle of the dash. It's not like here in front of you. It's so everybody can see it, and it's this giant freaking gauge.
Yeah, it's ugly.
So, like that, I will say that is stupid. The outside doesn't look bad though.
Wait, the Rebel Machine? Are you calling the Mini Cooper the Rebel Machine?
No. He's talking about AMC Rebel Machine.
Oh yeah, that's different. That's an iconic car.
Yeah, very gorgeous.
Even if it was ugly, it's iconic, which makes it pretty.
I mean, yeah.
There's a few cars out there that they made such a difference and whatever, that even though they're not necessarily the most aesthetically pleasing. I mean, to be honest, the Beetle or the Mini Cooper are not absolutely, oh my god, heart-throbbingly beautiful cars. They're not, but they made such a statement that they become desirable in a different way.
Yeah, you're not wrong. But they weren't ugly cars though. It was just one of those things.
I don't find even the old Beetles. I like the older Beetles better. But even the older Beetles, I don't find them as an attractively beautiful car.
Yeah, and Harvey, I was surprised to know about that because the only reason why, my buddy Keith owns a '62 Rambler. That's a 3 on the tree flathead 6.
We had a Rambler in my automotive shop when I was in tech school. I don't remember what year it was. It would have been at least 50s or 60s because it was still that, the Bel Air-esque looking styling.
Well, I mean, bear in mind, the Rambler only existed from about 1958 to 1970 anyways.
Yeah, well, it would have been, I don't remember what year it was, though, because we painted it up to look like a cop car. That's what we did with it. We blacked and whited it.
The Rambler, because it was interesting, the Rambler started as a compact to car in 1958, and then it went to more of a mid-size, because the one thing is, the Rebel Machine is a Rambler. It's just much later, and they got a lot more aggressive styling and stuff like that. I love the 68 through 1970 Rambler, gorgeous car in my opinion, but. Well, and I mean, there was a lot of cars that, they depicted them as being a little ugly, just in their ad campaigns, because AMC did the same thing. See, and the one thing is, now the new Beetle 2.0. I wasn't a fan of them when they came out until there are a couple of variants that I heard about. And I saw one of these variants, and I'm like, holy crap. So, the one, which is just a badass Beetle, you take that new Beetle 2.0 that they unveiled in 98 or whatever it was, and you put a wide body and a wing on the back of it, and you put a 3-liter V6 in it that makes over 300 horsepower. That thing is a freaking monster. But it's like, that's kind of badass. But then they also put a twin turbo diesel in one too.
I don't know why they stretch the new Beetles. It just really makes all the proportions wrong.
See, it looks like the brand new Beetles before they actually axed the Beetle finally. Not a fan of them until you get that tan Dune Beetle. Like they have a variant of it that's called the Dune of it, and with the tan on it, it looks good in my opinion. With the adornments that they do with it. However, a base one of those Beetles, yeah, not a pretty car. But I do like those ones. It's mostly just a paint job and different wheels, but it does.
This thing?
Sense. Yeah, that one.
Nope, still don't like it. It almost looks like it needs a whip antenna out of the back of the car.
Yeah, it should have one. Yes, 100%.
I think this is the one you're talking about with the wing or whatever.
Yeah, see, and actually, that's not the one I was talking about with the wing. That's a different, like, that's the Dune Beetle had that. Go search up Volkswagen Beetle RSI. That's the badass one. Like I said, it had over 300 horsepower, if I'm not mistaken.
Is it not a Dune Beetle? It's just a...
No, it's a race car. It's a street legal race car. Because when you see it, it's just like, yeah, it's got a bit of a wide body. They were all
that
silver.
thing?
Yeah, that thing.
Yeah.
Those things, they're a monster.
I don't care. It's still ugly.
It's awesome.
It can be fast. It can be brutal. I mean, Teslas are fast and brutal. They're still... I mean, and again, my opinion does not have to agree with anyone else. It is strictly mine, and I would not be even if I had a badass Beetle. It's still I would not be proud to own it.
Well, and actually, so Harvey, actually, if you wanna, this is something interesting about the creation of AMC, because I'm sure we all know that, yeah, it was Nash and Hudson that formed to make AMC. But we can go back in 1953. However,
Hudson had the Rambler first.
Yeah, the Rambler brand did exist first, and then they used the Rambler brand when AMC came out, and then they finally started badging them as AMCs in the 60s. But the thing is, though, if you want to go back to the creation of AMC, we have to go back to 1914. And because what happened in 1914, or at least I think that was the year, maybe something like that, the Lusitania sunk and World War I started after that.
We were talking about this the other day.
Yeah, it was 2 weeks ago.
I don't know if that was during the live or after a live, but I remember.
Yeah. Regardless, I'm going to mention it again.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because the thing is, it was, so, the owner of Nash at the time, again, it was a different company back then. This was before they became Nash Kelvinator. It was just Nash, and actually, it wasn't even called Nash. It was a different name altogether. The thing is, if it was his... No, he was supposed to be on the boat, or it was his dad that was on the boat. I can't remember for sure. But regardless, it gave him a real hard think, and he met with somebody afterwards, and he sold the company, which then they renamed it to Nash, and they combined with Nash Kelvinator. So if that never happened, we may have never actually gotten AMC. And this is way before they were even thinking of merging any of the companies to make one company. It's pretty wild.
I think we still should have had what was it? Was it Studebaker? What am I thinking?
Yeah.
No, Tucker. I still wish we would have had Tucker today. That'd have been some interesting cars. Or do you think they would have? Do you think they would have mellowed out like all the rest of them and just kind of lost their originality?
The problem is with Tucker Because if they didn't have all the legal battles because of that frickin' that radio host that said, hey, that Tucker's a fraud, and that's what actually got.
I still think that was a Big Three plant.
Huh?
Big Three. Dodge, Chevy, Ford.
And that's the one thing. It wasn't. Because the Big Three weren't scared of this. That's what's depicted in the movie, but that was actually incorrect. The Big Three did not care as much because this was going to be it was supposed to be a cheap car, but they could see the writing on the wall where this was going to be a very expensive car when it's all said and done. And it was. It used a helicopter flat six as a reference. Although in the helicopter it wasn't a flat motor, it was actually, like that. But,
what does Wikipedia disagree?
Is he talking about...
I don't know, I'm asking. I was letting him answer.
That's what I'm trying to figure out on that one.
I'll be right back. I'm going to go grab some shine.
Alright. But yeah, and that was the interesting thing with the Tucker, because, yeah, they only produced about 50-odd cars in 1948. And, this was a car that had so much safety in mind, but put together very poorly, and the execution of it was not great. Still an amazingly cool car, though. It was the first car to actually have a headlight that would turn with steering wheel, which we didn't get again in a vehicle until Mercedes in 1998. This is a car that came out or was being designed in 1948 that had this safety feature in mind, which is so damn cool. It's also the very first vehicle to have crumples in it. Because prior to that, and even long after that came out, it wasn't until the 80s where they were starting to think about crumple zones more so, and into the 90s. And what's interesting, because now Tucker, they wanted it to be a very safe vehicle, but there was a weird perception of safety back in the 40s and 50s. And
they were dangling babies in a freaking hanging basket from the ceiling as car seats.
Yes. Because Tucker wanted to put seatbelts in his vehicle, but the board actually said no, because you had seatbelts in your vehicle, people thought your car was unsafe. Just boggles your mind to think that way, but that was the thinking back then. So it had all these other safety things in mind, but that wasn't...
Can't wear a helmet while riding a bike because it might make the bike look unsafe.
Yeah, exactly, right? It's just so ridiculous of how they thought back then, but, and just back then, it was socially acceptable to drink and drive. It's just that sort of mentality. It's weird. But, and that's the one thing with Tucker, because, yeah, it was a very famous radio host that put this out there, and that's what got the FBI to raid the warehouse and steal all their stuff from them, and then it was just a snowball effect. In 8 months in court, they weren't really able to push out very many cars. It bled a ton of money. The company died. But then later on, Preston Tucker, this would have been in 1955 or so, he wanted to relaunch a car. And he actually went to Brazil to do it. They were getting it designed and everything. And then unfortunately, Preston Tucker actually fell very ill and died within about 6 months. And unfortunately, his car never saw the light of day. But, what could have been? If he stayed healthy, it's possible we could have had a Tucker sports car, because that's actually what this was going to be. And it's sad. Very sad.
It's like the, what was it, the B-29? The hell was the name of that B-29? The one that's up in the Arctic Circle. They had a mechanic up there, and he had helped basically get this. It had crash landed during the war, and then in like the mid 2000s, they went up to go retrieve it. They put brand new engines in it and repaired a bunch of stuff, and they got it freaking flight worthy. And they were testing it out, and they were supposed to just pull it out to the edge of the ice bed. And the guy that was piloting, I guess, went to go take off with it. And there was something wrong with the generator in the tail, and it was leaking gas, and it caught fire and burnt the whole plane to the ground. After basically taking a wrecked B-29, restoring it in the middle of the frickin' ice cap, and getting it ready to fly, and it got that close. They got that close to being in the air again and just burnt to the ground.
That is quite sad.
Oh, it is. It was really. I mean, there's a whole documentary on it. It was a really, really pretty plane.
Oh yeah, B-29s are gorgeous. You know.
I didn't realize that they were made of. They had fabric wings.
Yeah, they did. And yeah, that was just because it was cheap. And that, well, it's no different than like, hey, the Japanese Zero, which fun fact, that was made by Mitsubishi.
Well, it's a Japanese car company, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, they built it, and their airframes are wood, which is wild to think about that. You know, of a fighter plane that has a wooden frame on it that's not from, like, turn of the century. You know, like, or World War I. Like,
well, I mean, you got to think about it. Those planes right then there, they weren't far off from a bi-wing. And bi-wings didn't have metal frames.
But they were thinking more of aerodynamics and stuff like that, and they were a lot faster of planes, too.
Oh, they were freaking... the Zeros were freaking nasty. In a good way.
Yeah, well, like, and those bi-wings and stuff like that, they were designed for, like, dogfights a lot more, while later on we were thinking, well, we should get more speed and still be able to do that. And yeah, but just the fact that the airframe was wooden, but it was just because of the mentality of Japan, because, you know, we all know about suicide, you know, like, bombers, right? Especially with Japan, they did it a lot. And the one thing is, because when a Japanese fighter pilot, when they ran out of ammunition in their plane, they would just crash into your boat. Or at least they would attempt to. And they sunk a lot of boats doing it. Like, it's just a weird mentality of Japan. Where, you know...
Yeah, no, don't. Well, it's because they could... Most of the time, they couldn't come back to base anyway. They didn't have enough fuel or anything else on them. So once they ran out of ammunition, well, the plane itself was the last ammunition they had. And they couldn't return home. So it was a suicide, like literally, it's a suicide mission. It was stay in the air and cause as much damage as possible, because once you have no more ammunition, you're of no use because you're not getting back.
Oh yeah, but I mean, but it's just even like, because it's interesting with like even the mantra of the Japanese military dating back, you know, thousands of years, to be honest, because they were that same mentality the entire time, you know? Like, you ever heard of seppuku? When they take, you know, if they've been dishonored, or if they're about to die,
yeah, take their own life.
By stabbing themselves and pulling their blade up. It was just a way for them to keep their honor. It was no different than even with the Zero as well, and crashing them like that. There was that side of like, hey, because I mean, the one thing is, Japan did have their own aircraft carriers, and they could have, you know, landed, refueled, re-up.
It depends on how far out they were, because at some of the missions that they were doing, it was a one-way trip.
Oh yeah, but you never heard about the Americans doing that though, or the British, or the Canadians. Like, you know, it was just one of those things. Even the Russians never did that. even though I could see Russians actually doing that, but they never did. And it's one of those things. It's a little interesting. Or I guess if you want to get technical, the Soviets, not the Russians, because different time period. But again, it's interesting, and and even how much the big three had an impact on the war and building vehicles and munitions and whatever else. Like, it's interesting because while the Willys Jeep, as we know it today, and even they still kept that same basic design that they designed in 1940 to today. But the thing is, that design was actually by Bantam, which Bantam was a small American company that they just built tiny little cars that, to be honest, they were like 600cc freaking go-karts, essentially. They weren't really a very good vehicle or anything, but they were the only ones that could meet the demands of the, they were the only ones that actually put in a prototype for this, because what was so dumb is the United States military basically said, hey, we need a vehicle with these sort of statistics, and you need to build a prototype in 30 days.
And not to mention that, I think it needed to be able to be taken apart and put back together.
Yeah. Well, like I said, they had a bunch of specifications in mind that they did throw out to them, but, and that was one of them, right? Is that with just basic hand tools, you can just tear this thing apart very quickly. And yeah, it was Bantam, but Bantam could not keep up to the military demand, so then Willys got involved. And Willys started building them, but again, they couldn't keep up. So what's interesting is a lot of those military Jeeps from 1941 to 1945 are actually Ford built. They're not Willys, and very rarely did you find a Bantam. And even though it'll say Willys on it, and you don't know until they had slightly different grills between the Bantam, the Willys, and the Ford. And there's a couple other little things too, but it's pretty wild.
Will said that some of the missions had enough fuel to get to the fight and fight for a short time. They used most of their fuel getting to the fight. Yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah. There was that too. Like, don't get me wrong, that was a part of it. But like I mentioned, though, is even if they had enough fuel to get back, it was dishonorable if you flew your plane back, typically. It was just, again, Japanese mentality. It's just one of those weird things, because again, we wouldn't frown on that with the Allied powers, but Japan's like, no, you have to die for your country. Like, you have to die. It's like, pretty weird.
Harvey asked, were the parts interchangeable?
Between what?
The Willys. The different Jeeps.
Oh. Yeah, fair. Yeah, they're...
I would assume they would have to be, because otherwise they wouldn't be very useful to the military. Because field repair.
Yeah, and like, it's interesting, actually, because when you think of... Because after, World War I, or World War II, ended, because the British military were thinking, hey, we want something like that, and Land Rover, actually, they wanted to throw their hats in the ring, so that's when the first Land Rover came out. But what's interesting, though, about those, the very first prototype for the Land Rover, they were actually going to sell it as center drive, because it didn't matter if it was left or right-hand drive markets. That it was just center, so it didn't matter. But yeah, that got shot down pretty quick, and then they became either right-hand drive or left-hand drive. And then the military used the snatched Land Rover right up until the 90s, which is really sad, because protection from anything was terrible in those. It makes a Humvee look armored, even though there were armor.
Yeah, Humvees can take a freaking pretty sizable explosion from underneath. That was the whole point of them.
Only the armored ones, because there was different variants of the Humvee.
Most of them, no, the sides weren't, but the undercarriage was. A lot of them can roll over a landmine and be fine. it's the sides that weren't very protected. Like, that was one of the biggest things about them, was the fact that they can run over a landmine and be pretty okay. That was because they were designed for the, what is it, the Gulf War.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess that is true. I was thinking more of the top, not the bottom. But
no, they definitely were not going to withstand aircraft fire from above unless they had the armored ones. But one of the big selling points for those ones was the fact that they can, they can take a IED from underneath and be pretty okay. I mean, they may not be running anymore, but the occupants inside would be,
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying they're running a marathon after getting a freaking explosion from underneath, but there'd be survivors.
Yeah, because I've talked to military members and that have, like, they run over IEDs, and they said, yeah, to be honest, it was nice that it had a little bit of armor under there, but usually there was a hole in the bottom of the freaking Humvee afterwards. And they said, yeah, they weren't always the best, and a lot of those Humvees, like even the armored ones, didn't really hold up to like an AK-47 being shot at them. It was.
I'm pretty sure better than the Willies did.
Oh yeah, well, considering it had doors, like at the very least, a Humvee had doors. The Willies didn't. But it just.
My point is the Humvee was supposed to be able to be a little bit more traversable, and it was supposed to be a little bit more protected as far as, improvised explosive devices. But
yeah, and it was to a certain degree.
I like the fact that you can literally take a Humvee straight to a fucking wall and climb the wall straight up.
Yeah, it's really neat.
Because the front wheels stick out further than the bumper.
Yes. Well, like, it will, as long as you get the balance right, it can do it, but even the PTO will climb up it, too, if you need to. Which is really cool. I have a weird perversion with an H1. I want one, even though I don't know what to do with it, but I want one.
I have no desire for any of the Hummer variants. Only the military variants.
Well, I just miss when even the military variants you could pick up for cheap, because you can't do it anymore.
No.
They're all stupid expensive now. But I remember, because even where I grew up in Lethbridge, there was an advertising company that, to get eyes on stuff, they had a fleet of military Humvees. And they would just have a giant, LED sign on top of them just to advertise whatever it was, right? And then they had this fleet, and you could buy one of their cars, and they had very low miles and stuff like that because they just sat forever. But after they were done with those, you could pick it up for $2,000 because they didn't give a crap anymore. And now those same ones I've seen for sale for $30. It's so sad.
Yeah, but a lot of the luxury companies and stuff are buying them up and converting them into luxury or performance versions of them.
Yeah, that's true. And yeah, Harvey, it was AM General for the H1, and then it's funny because GM bought AM General, which is interesting because you want to know who actually owned AM General prior to GM buying them? It was actually AMC. AMC owns AM General and Jeep for the longest time, and then part of the that's right. They may have lost AM General actually in the 80s with the Chrysler acquisition, I think. That could have been it.
Yeah, because that was 87 or 88 that Jeep went to Chrysler.
Yeah, well, the Chrysler bought AMC and then just killed AMC and kept Jeep. But yeah, I believe it did not. I think at that point they lost, which would have been 88. They lost the rights for AM General at that point, because AM General, what's interesting about it, because you could own AM General, but only if you can commit. If you couldn't commit to their stock, it was technically if I'm not mistaken, a government company, and they would just leave. It's a very weird thing, if I'm not mistaken. And then now, because. And I found this interesting, and I wondered how GM actually was able to do this, because, there's the new Hummer now, which is that EV that's just awful.
Yeah, I have no interest in that. I had no interest in the H3 either.
Well,
or the H2, really.
Yeah, an H3 is just an over-glorified Tahoe.
Not even, it's smaller than one. Maybe like the Blazer, the mini Blazer version of the Tahoe, but not an actual Tahoe.
No, it was based on the Tahoe. Just like the H2 was based on a Tahoe, same as the H3.
H3 is a lot smaller. Have you ever been to seen an H3?
Yeah,
they're tiny. Yeah, they're like an S10 Blazer size.
But they're bigger than that.
Not really.
The one thing is, I think they use the Tahoe chassis, if I'm not mistaken.
If I'm gonna say Tahoe chassis, we're gonna talk the S10 Blazer Tahoe, not the full size Tahoe.
Yeah, see, well, no, I'm thinking of like the full size Tahoe.
No, not with an H3. H3 is way too small.
Yeah, it's still 6,000 pounds.
But it's tiny.
There's
a guy that parks his H3 on my block. It isn't much freaking bigger than my Kia Soul.
Well, no, I know, like they're not giant, but it's not a Suburban either. Like that's the difference.
The H2 is huge compared to an H3.
Yeah, but they're both still a Tahoe.
I'm going to do some tinkering on the interwebs here.
Because I know it's not a Blazer. Tell you that.
The Tahoe and the Blazer are the same thing. The second Tahoe.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the second Tahoe.
The second Tahoe is an S10 Blazer. GMC Tahoe was the name given to the S10 Blazer for GMC.
Maybe in the States. Up here, it was a Chevy Tahoe. They did not use that
The
name.
Tahoe is not a... hold on.
Like, the Tahoe and the Blazer were two different models altogether. They shared almost nothing alike. Even underneath. It was like nothing. Because where the Tahoe had a V8, the Blazer couldn't get that.
The H3 is based on a Chevy Colorado.
There you go.
I told you, it's tiny. And the Chevy Colorado is what replaced the S10.
That's true, yeah, it did. Yeah, I wasn't thinking of...
And I'm pretty sure... Alright, so...
I never would have thought that. But hey, I know it's still 6,000 pounds, though. It's a fucking behemoth. Like, for weight-wise. It's no H1. H1s are like...
1991 Chevy S10 Blazer Tahoe.
Oh, well, there you go. Because, yeah, I'm just trying to think of... Because the H3 came out, what was that, 2006?
There is...
When was that?
An S10 Tahoe.
Yeah, see, but the H3 didn't exist in that time period, though.
But the S10 Blazer ran all the way up until they just called it the Trailblazer. Still an S10 Blazer.
See, I never thought, because like the Trailblazer, because it got bigger though.
No, the Trailblazer is the exact same size as the regular freaking when they got rid of the K5 Blazer, the S10 Blazer, is what was left, and the Trailblazer is the exact same size as the Blazer was the year before. They just had a fancier styling to them.
And it might just be because like they had the bigger looking front end and stuff like that I'm just thinking that it's a bigger car overall. Because you look at a Trailblazer, it looks like it's bigger than like an S10 Blazer because an S10 doesn't have the presence, right? But a Trailblazer does, and that might be what's throwing me off, to be honest. Because like I've seen both in person, and I've never really put the two together that way. In that regard, like I know.
So the Trailblazer started in 2001, or no, in 1998 to 2001, it was a trim package for the Blazer. So it was a Blazer. In 2001 to 2008, it became its own separate individual model, and they axed the Blazer altogether.
And seeing like
okay, so there is your second gen Blazer.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's your Trailblazer.
You see, it looks like a bigger car, but it's only because like what I was mentioning before. Is that like the front end looks a lot bigger just because it has that presence on it where an S10 didn't have that. And that might be what's throwing me off. Like I mentioned before, you don't have to keep looking it up because I just told you.
All right. So the Trailblazer was a heavy 174 inches long and 71 inches wide.
You see, even Harvey said the one that continued was a larger vehicle. Which that's what I thought. Like I was pretty sure that the Trailblazer, when they went with its own model, was a.
All right, so the regular Blazer was 183 inches long and 68 inches wide, and the Trailblazer, what did I say? 183. And the Trailblazer was... I just had it. Where'd it go? Images. Yeah, no. The Trailblazer's 174. The Blazer was 183. The Trailblazer is like 3 inches wider, but it's not longer. So like I said... Trailblazer, 174 inches long, 71 inches wide. The Blazer itself, for 19, and I'm going for the 1998 one only because I guarantee you that's not going to be the full size.
Yeah, see, well, also, I mean...
Yeah. 68 inches wide and 177 to 183 inches long. So it's definitely, the Blazer was definitely a bigger vehicle.
His Harvey work at GM, he's actually saying that they're entirely different. Nothing interchanges between the S10 and that.
No, okay. So it's just like when they went from the Chevy Cavalier to the Cobalt. It would just have been the next generation. Okay, they changed the name, but and it's like the Neon when they went to the Neon to the Dart. The Dart would have been the next Neon. They changed the name so it was more appealing to newer customers.
Yeah.
The Trailblazer is just the next iteration of the Blazer.
Well, I know. I wasn't saying that. I never said that.
Well, he's saying no parts interchange. Duh. It would have been... It's just like there's no parts to interchange between a first-gen Cavalier and the second-gen Cavalier. They could have changed the name, too, but they didn't. It would have been the next generation of Blazer. They just chose to change the name to make it different and new. The Trailblazer would have still been the Blazer. It's just, it's just like everything else. They decided to do a name change at the same time.
And he may have just been saying that just in general, to be honest. And what's interesting though, because there was obviously, and what's interesting with the Trailblazer, because it had that 4.2 liter inline six, but then they also had, didn't they put an LS in one of those too? I'm sure they did. With the Trailblazer SS.
All right, so I'm trying to go back. The S10 Tahoe there is a full size Tahoe as well, just like there's a full size Blazer. The Trailblazer was a trim option on the second gen S10 Blazer. In 2001, they dropped the Blazer and the Blazer name, and they just called it a Trailblazer. There wasn't a bigger Trailblazer that was always on the S10 platform, because even the newer Trailblazer is still that same. Yes, Cavalier, Cobalt, Cruise. They would have all been on the same platform. But yes, the Trailblazer is essentially would have been the new Blazer if they didn't change the name. And it was still all of the the S10 generation of the Blazer. Because they dropped the full size Blazer in 94, 95? Because they kept it. They kept the same Blazer from the 80s all the way up into the middle of the 90s. As the full size Blazer. Because it shared part of the same body as the Suburban. But then again, you're also talking about maybe Canada was a little different than America, but yeah. Well, again, it's still, like I said, if it wasn't for the name change, that was the same series for that car.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, it does. That's what I thought, because I was just looking into that too, because I was pretty sure they put an LS in the Trailblazer, and they did. A couple of LSs actually.
Mm-hmm. You could get an LS in the S10 Blazer in the second gen. They had V8. They had V8. I'm pretty sure they had V8 versions of the Blazer. Maybe not an LS. Maybe an LT.
No, not with the S10 Blazer. Never.
Well, you're thinking that they didn't call it the S10 Blazer anymore. The S10 Blazer was technically only the first gen.
Well, the S10 Blazer went until the Trailblazer replaced it. Right?
No, because technically the second gen Blazer was not called an S10 Blazer anymore. They just called it the Blazer.
Yes, I know, but it was still an S10 based though.
Yeah.
Which only had as big as a 4.3 V6. That one I do know. They never put a V8 in that thing. Just like they never put a V8 in the S10. Ever. Even though they should have, because Dodge didn't. It was a really good truck. Yeah, and Harvey said, and there was no stock V8 small Blazers. Which he would know. He worked for GM at the time, too.
I don't know. Plenty of us Americans stuck V8s in them anyway.
Yeah, of course. So did we Canadians, too. You know? The new Blazer is terrible. It's a front-wheel drive, terrible frickin' thing. Just, ugh. You know? And... but also, they did unveil the Trailblazer name for it again, too. But, it is a disgrace to the Blazer name, is what that is. You know? Because that is, I think, the chassis is a Chevrolet Traverse, if I'm not mistaken, and it just, ugh, gross. V6, no 8s whatsoever, base front-wheel drive, or all-wheel drive. But not because you can't have that. Terrible. Terrible.
Oh, did they drop the Trailblazer again and they call it the Blazer? Oh, that's right. They came back out with it, what is that, in like 2018 or 19 or something?
Yeah, I thought they were different like trim models, but maybe they're not. I don't
No,
know.
no, because I did believe it's also only front-wheel drive, I think.
Yeah, one of them is, for sure. And then I know you can get an all-wheel drive, but it's literally, I'm pretty sure it's a Chevrolet Traverse underneath. Just, gross. I bet. I mean, modern GM is just not... Actually, speaking of which, so, okay, Harvey, you might know, 2012, 2011-ish, Chevrolet had a Silverado. Of course, they had the LS, and they would have had some variant of a V6. But they did have a weird variant V8. Do you know what that is? Only reason why is because the parts car that I sold, because I sold my parts car this past week.
It wasn't the LQ4, was it?
Huh?
Wasn't the LQ4?
Maybe, I'm trying to remember what he said. But basically, it's just like nothing interchanges with an LS.
Oh, no, an LQ4 is just it's an iron block LS.
Oh, yeah, no. Like this, nothing interchanges with an LS, and it's apparently because of the K-member, it's a pain in the ass to put an LS in one. It's just, I don't know what the motor is, to be honest. I can't remember what he said. But, he bought my 83 Mustang parts car, which is funny, with a carbureted 3.8 and a C4 or maybe a C5 automatic. I didn't know what transmission it had. But he bought that to put that drivetrain in his 2011 Silverado. Because, again, it's got a weird motor in it that you can't find parts for. I don't know, and it grenaded itself recently, and that's why he bought that off of me. And I can't remember what he said, though, that motor was. I mean, I could look it up, maybe, but I don't know if I can find it. Because it's weird. Because you would have thought that GM would have just stayed the same with the freaking LS, just put an LS and it'd be done.
Turbo i4, 3.0 Duramax diesel, 5.3 Ecotec, and a 6.2 Ecotec. That's 2022, though.
2011, 2012. I can't remember what year he said. It was either 11 or 12. I just can't remember.
.3-liter V6, 4.8-liter V8, and a 5.3-liter V8. 6.2-liter, which would have been the LQ4. Those were all LSs.
Yeah, those are all LSs. So I don't know what he was saying then.
Nope, same options for 2012.
I don't know then. But yeah, he just said that it had just this weird motor that you can't find parts for or whatever. So that's why he was doing this weird swap in it. Because yeah, and for reference, he's putting a Ford 3.8 carbureted engine, which was only available for 1 year in the 80s, with a C4 or a C5 automatic behind it to be a tow rig and a farm truck, which is hilarious. And such a big-ass truck. I'm not sure if it's going to have enough power to really move itself very well, but hey, power to you if you can make it work. Yeah, it's very odd. I don't know why he went for it, but he does do weird and different things though too. But it's just
2.7-liter 4-cylinder Chevy Silverado.
When was that?
That's a new one.
Oh, okay.
In fact, actually, my boss, he had a Chevy. He just traded his Chevy in for the new L4 1500 Silverado. A 4-cylinder 1500 Silverado.
Yeah, that just sounds wrong.
It does. Like, what are you expecting me pulling with that?
Yeah, well, that's why, like, even at the very least, Ford, even though it's a small six, but they in their full size they never put a four cylinder in it. Just like Dodge never put a four cylinder in their full size either.
Well, here, let
And
me just wiki it and see if I can find anything that they would have said have been weird.
yeah, because I do because I never really looked it up. I never really asked them too much on it. Even though I had loads of time, I could have asked them because that e-transfer didn't go through, and we were getting lunch together for like an hour. So wait, wait,
The
Harvey,
engines for the third generation, which would have been 2007, would have been 4.3 V6, 4.8 V8, which these are all Vortec engines. The 4.8, the 5.3, the 6.0, the 6.2.
I don't know then.
The third generations, which would have been 2014 to 2019, got the Ecotec 4.3 V6, the Ecotec 5.8 V8, the Ecotec 5.3 also V8, the Ecotec 6.2 liter V8, which would have been the LV3, the L83, the L8B, the L86, and then the HD's got a LY6, which is a Vortex 6.0, the LML, which would have been the Duramax 6.6, and the L5P, which would have been another Duramax 6.6. Nothing weird really there.
I don't know, unless if he has one of those test mules that wasn't supposed to get out or something. I don't know.
Unless he's talking about the Ecotec 3.
Maybe. I don't know.
I don't know what the Ecotec 3 is.
Nor do I. And
all right, now becoming... All right, so GM has now dropped the GMT 900 platform, now becoming the K2XX. This generation of Silverado has 3 gasoline engine options, blah, 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 blah. Third generation Silverado uses an aluminum on the hood for the engine block and for the control arms in order to save mass. That doesn't say anything.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to find info on this, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, if it was much newer than this one, then you're looking into today's generation, which...
Yeah, and I don't know, but it's fine. It's whatever. Back to Harvey. So wait, you have a 3.8 carb motor out of an LTD that's like rebuilt? Because not that I really want it, but I mean, I could probably find something to stick it into though. If it was rebuilt, it actually wouldn't be bad, but that's interesting. And also, like, fun fact, an LTD2, that's the Fox body LTD. It only existed for a few years. And being with that 3.8 carb motor, again, because that motor's a 1-year only motor. It's 1983 only, because afterwards they replaced it with injection in 84.
Chevy, getting that transmission in that frickin' S10 is probably going to be your best bet, because your full-size truck is going to need some frickin' work.
Yeah, And I mean, like, and hey, it's $75 for a tranny. That's a good deal. Even if that's American, that's still, Canadian. That's only like $120. Not bad. Pretty good. And yeah, like that's the one thing, because like so the transmission that's in my Capri only cost me $100. Well, it didn't cost me $100. It cost Keith $100. Then the spare engine that came with it cost an extra $100. So it's a pretty good deal in that regard. The only thing is with that transmission, I don't know why it does this. Is when it's something with the kickdown, which is kind of weird. Whenever you are like hard on, or like not hard on the gas, but just like driving it kind of somewhat hard, it'll shift kind of hard in the third unless you let off the gas. I don't know why it does that.
It could be something internal.
Could be. I'm not too worried about it blowing up. I mean, hopefully it doesn't, but I don't think it will.
Well, when I had the one done in my truck, they eliminated the spring and the valve in it for the softer shifts. So all of the shifts engage like solidly. There is no soft engagement in that transmission anymore.
Mm.
It does supposedly let the clutch packs last longer.
Well, see, and actually, Harvey, actually, I think it'd be easier and cheaper if he found a T5 out of an S10. There seems to be a lot more of those versus Chevrolet NV3500s are kind of harder to come by, it seems. Like, whenever I've looked for them, they're really hard, but yet I can find T5s all the time, even for S10s. And to be honest, for strength, they're about the same between the two, and he's only got a V6, so he's not going to blow up a T5.
I don't know. I'm looking for, well, not actively looking because I can't afford to buy it, but I'm looking for an LQ4 for the Nova. Little iron block 6.0.
Yeah, I know what it is. It's
They can make 600 horsepower with not too much.
Oh yeah, no, it's that's the one thing with the LSs are just, especially iron block LSs. They're amazing. I don't know, but they should.
Well, I think what he was looking to do is to V8 swap the S10 and put a manual in it.
Oh, is that what he said?
Right now, it's got a 4.3 automatic.
Oh, see, I didn't know he was trying to do a V8, which in that case, yeah, you might not want a T5 if you're going to do an LS. Like, T5s are great, but they're not going to hold up to a power with of an LS. They just won't. Unless you build out the transmission. That's why, like, the T5 I have in my car is not so bad.
Or maybe not. Maybe he's just manual swapping it. Because he said I want to manual swap it, but trying to find a parts truck with a manual and a 4.3 is a nightmare. So no, I think he is looking for a manual for the 4.3.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, this is a 94, because 94, yeah, that's still a square body S10, isn't it? Yeah, because I was thinking suspicion it'd be.
I have a picture of his truck.
Well, like, in the next generation of that, but the problem is how much of that's actually going to interchange because you're in a square body S10. Like, I don't know. True, there were T5s and F bodies for a little bit in the 80s, and then in the 90s they just went with a T56 and went done with it. It's true, William. I don't know you that well.
Well, technically you do, but you don't. He's the guy that's been in my videos back when, well, it was before you knew me. But yeah, there's his S10.
Oh, okay, it is that generation. I thought 94 would have been the square body. Okay, so in that instance, you could probably, find almost any of them that would fit, as long as you don't find a really late one with the spider injection 4.3, because that gets to be a nightmare if you're dealing with that. But
See, he used to have a really, really nice car, and he's gonna yell at me for sharing this.
that is, it's G body.
It's a Monty SS.
It is a Monty, okay. I'm just gonna tell, it's kind of blurry on the pictures, because it wasn't focusing on the picture, it was focusing on Leo. So. Oh, there we go, that's definitely a Monty. Yeah.
And I do believe that was LS swapped.
Why would you get rid of that?
Because finances, that's why.
Fair enough. I mean, I get that. I mean, I got rid of my V8 convertible for this inline 6 Capri for the same reason.
Yeah, he ran into money issues and had to sell it, mainly because of his ex, I think.
Fair enough. Well, see, like, and Harvey, I do know that they did some weird engine management stuff with the 4.3 starting in, like, either the late 90s or early 2000s. They also put what's called the spider injection system on it, which is
that's what the Corvettes had.
Yeah, the 4.3 got it too. It was a terrible injection system. It may not have been as bad on the Corvette, but on the 4.3, it was god awful. It didn't work that well when it came to if you wanted to do anything with it, period. And because I only know that because a friend of mine, before he put a 454 in that truck, so my friend Pat, he has an OBS Chevy pickup. He calls it Dobby, and he's rebuilt that truck essentially from the ground up. It's still kind of a POS, but the thing is, at one point, so he has a Cummins 6-speed manual behind it, and he had a 4.3 with spider injection on it. And he told me the drive shaft was only about that long because of how long the transmission was.
It's like the original transmission that was bolted to my 500. The transmission was like 2 times as long as the engine. Which is funny, again, 5.0 and not being a transaxle. Not a 5.0, an 8.3 liter and not being a transaxle.
Wait, 8.3, what?
Caddy 500, not transaxle.
Oh yeah, I know, they weren't.
No, most of them were. Most of the big Caddy engines were front wheel drive.
Well, I mean, yeah, true. I'm just sorry. My brain's not working.
Yeah, I have thrown you for a loop. Most of the 8.3s were front wheel drive transaxle mounted engines. I had my Caddy 500 was a turbo 400 long shaft.
Well, also, like, when they actually put the CAD 500 in, they didn't put them, like, sideways. They still had them like that with a turbo 400 behind it. That's how they all work. Well, the reason being is I've actually seen Team Mechanics Caddy. It has it just like that.
It's a rear engine. It's a rear rear wheel drive car. Then.
No, it's not. Go look at the Eldorados in the 70s. They were all like that, just like the Oldsmobile Tornado, because it used that transaxle. It still has a transaxle, it's weird because it still has a long shaft turbo 400 on the back of it. They're weird. But it's just how GM did it because they didn't do it longitudinal. Or, sorry, they didn't put it transverse is what I meant. And, yeah, like, they still have a transaxle. It's just not how you think them. They're different. Or at least it's a variant of a Turbo 400 anyways. That I do know. Because I think they call it the 435 or something. But, yeah. Yeah, because like, I've driven his Caddy. I can definitely tell you it is front-wheel drive because I tripped the tires in the front.
Yeah, but it's not a Turbo 4. It's not. It's a transaxle in the front, not a long shaft Turbo 400.
Well, it's got a transmission because it loops.
Yeah, the transaxle is a transmission. A transaxle just means that the axles come out the side. It doesn't have a drive shaft that comes out the back.
Yeah, I guess I was just thinking like just the way that the transmission is mounted, because of most front-wheel drives you don't see it like that, right? They're a lot different. And they're just
Caddy 500 transaxle.
Well, see, for some reason I swear it looked different than that, but maybe it didn't. It's been a hot minute since I've seen this car, so there's that. To be honest, we haven't chatted in a while, and that's one thing I want to see, because if I'm available that weekend, I want to see if he wants to go up to the swap with me next weekend.
Versus the transmission that I had on the back of mine.
Yeah, okay. I just wasn't remembering.
Look at the size of that tail shaft.
Yeah, that's like ridiculously long. And it's just kind of like those Eldorados are cool, and like the Tornados and everything. Of being front wheel drive, I don't know why they did it. Like of all things, because like you look at those Eldorados, you look at the the Tornado.
Yeah, I'm trying to find one where it shows both the engine and the trans, just so you can, like, a Caddy 500 is huge, and then you look at this transmission attached to the back of it, and then you get the scale of how big that transmission was.
Well, yeah, like I know how big a CAD 500 is. Although it's funny, because a CAD 500 in the engine bay of that Eldorado still looks small. Like,
it's a big engine bay.
There is underneath that hood with a 500 cubic inch motor in it.
Though I do have to tell you, the Cadillac 500 does not look big on the outside.
True.
But the holes for the pistons on the inside of that engine are absolutely massive.
Yeah, like it's because actually, like total surface area of how big the motor is, I think they're actually smaller, at least externally.
They're not much bigger than a Chevy 350.
Yeah, I was gonna say like because like the biggest probably street motor, excluding modern engines,
454,
and other than weird GMC V12s that they put in trucks and stuff, like probably would be a 426 Hemi. That's my guess.
Oh yeah, they're big, but the 454s are pretty big too.
They are, but you see a 454 next to a Hemi, and just like the Hemi, it's mostly the heads in a Hemi that make it big, but it's just.
Well, that's like a modern Coyote engine. I mean, the block themselves is not very big. It's everything attached to it that's huge.
That's true. Yeah, which actually, that's one thing, because friend of mine on TikTok, he actually has a YouTube channel called Inspiration Nation, and like I don't watch his YouTube videos that often, but I watch a lot of his TikToks. Yeah,
That's a naked caddy engine.
Yeah, because what is the bore size?
4.3 inches. Pretty sure.
It's pretty big.
I'm pretty sure they also have a 4.3 inch stroke as well.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. Now, see, that doesn't surprise me, Harvey, to be honest. Cause...
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. It's a 4.34 bore size and a 4.30 crankshaft stroke to get a Caddy 500.
Yeah. That's kind of cool that they're, like, almost identical.
And, I mean, you got to think about it. The Caddy used the same size engine all the way from the 3 something. I know the modern, the last generation would have been the 425 up to the 500. But they also had a 3 something engine that used the same block.
It wasn't the 3.8. Wasn't that engine series called the 385 series? If I'm not mistaken. Like that family? Because they had the 472, they had the 500, and I think it can date it back to like a 385 or something like that. I think.
I will.
472, 500.
Yeah, 472 and 500 were the main one, but it was also the 425.
Okay.
Yeah, 572, 500, and the 425.
Yeah, Harvey, the 390 Cadillac engine was a different block altogether.
Yeah. 425 was the smallest.
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought. And now, did they call it? Because when you look on like Wikipedia, did they call it the 385 series, or am I thinking of something else?
I don't know. I will tell you here in a second.
I'm trying to remember what the hell that was. That was 385 series. If it wasn't that. And oh yeah, those caddy blocks are very, very heavy. It's not light at all. It's cast iron and it's awful. When it comes to weight. I mean, also, like, consider this though, William. A CAD 500 fully dressed is like 700 pounds. Like, they're a whale. So, even the block itself is probably about 300 or 400 of that. Like, the crank itself is like 80 pounds. Like, they're a whale. But also, like, with Harvey saying, like, apparently Cadillac was toying with V12 in the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that doesn't surprise me.
It was called the monoblock.
Monoblock?
Mm-hmm.
Because I know, like, Cadillac, if you go back far enough, they actually made a V16.
The monoblock, a 322 cubic inch, 5.3 liter monoblock engine was used in the 1936 Series 60. It was designed to be the company's next generation power plant and reduce the cost of the 353 and the Cadillac V12. Hold on. Because, alright, so do any of you guys remember the Caddy that I found abandoned in the garage? Will might remember this car. I have pictures of it. It was a 1948 or 49 Cadillac convertible. It was I think it was a post-war car. See if I have pictures of it. If I can pull up pictures of it.
And my dumbass was 385 series. That's for the Ford big block. My bad.
am I looking at here? I shared pictures of it on here before. But that could have came with, I think, the inline 6 or V12.
Yeah, see, I don't really know anything about, like, 30s.
Oh, it was a gorgeous car. I don't know whatever happened to it. Chevy might know more than I do. Yes, you have lifted that Caddy engine. That's why it never made it past my freaking living room.
Why would you even attempt to lift it?
Because we needed to get it in the house because it was sitting in the trunk of my Nova. We had to lift it out of the trunk of my Nova. It was a bare block. There was nothing in it. We had to lift it out of the trunk of my Nova, and we brought it inside. And the goal, originally wanted to put it up in the attic because I figured that was the most sensible place to put it. And then until we realized that we're not lifting it up 2 flights of fucking stairs. So it stayed in my living room. It never made it past my living room.
Fair enough. Wow. You know when your computer is so far behind that... Oh my god. So, my computer, right now, with the live stream, because it's just been lagging and being horrible, and this is how bad this computer is for watching the stuff like this. It's over an hour behind.
Mine's almost an hour behind too. Hour and 18 minutes.
Mine's an hour and 6, so actually it's a little better than yours again.
Come on, I knew I had pictures of it. Where the fuck is it?
Which, that's one thing I wonder because Harvey is just talking about the transaxle in the Eldorado.
Well, he might need to refresh his page.
Yeah, I was going to say. I'm just going to type it in the chat.
Yeah, because otherwise he's going to have to wait till he gets to where we're at. Chevy might be behind too. Where is the pictures that I am looking for?
Where's my hairbrush?
Oh, I wasn't looking for your hairbrush, but okay.
Well, come on, do you know that reference at least?
No.
How do you not know VeggieTales? Come on now.
I do know VeggieTales. I don't know that one. I'm not a super big VeggieTales fan because it happens to be a religious show, and I'm not very religious, but...
Yeah, nor am I. And to be honest, like, when you rewatch some of the VeggieTales stuff, it's like, holy crap, how preachy this was.
Oh yeah, it was meant to be.
Yeah, I know. That was the point of it. But there's also some good...
Harvey was 28 seconds behind.
So either... Well... As long as there isn't, I wonder if that's a thing right now too.
A lag on YouTube itself?
Yeah, well, because I was dealing with this on TikTok the other night. I had a 2-minute delay between... So I could read the comments. The comments were live, but my video wasn't getting to them until 2 minutes later.
Wow, that sucks. How are you supposed to have a conversation like that?
It was, and I just said, I'm sorry guys, I gotta call it. Oh, okay. That's like, yeah. That's definitely post-war. That's 40s.
It was absolute, dude. There we go. There's another picture of it.
Yeah, it definitely.
I'm trying to get so like the whole phone is.
There's a bunch of glare, but I can see it. Just yeah, I know the shape. To be honest, I've seen those before. They're freaking cool as hell.
But you I mean, the thing you need to understand is this car was immaculate. Dusty.
Yeah, very dusty. And, like, probably a nightmare to find parts for, too.
But I mean,
cool,
look at the stitching on these seats. Look at the freaking convertible top.
And, like, that's when vehicles were built with quality.
But even still, quality or not, a car sitting this long should not. I mean...
Well, I can tell you right now, the roof probably wasn't original. But the interior may have been. But not the roof. That roof would have decayed.
I'm pretty sure that the car itself was black.
Yeah, I mean, that's the one thing. That almost actually looks like a tinge of green in there, to be honest. But
it's the lighting.
It could just be the lighting, though, too. With the dust. But that's the one thing. Until you, like, really... Because that's the one thing. It might look black with all that dust on it, but you wash that off, it could actually be green.
It had a red interior. I doubt it was green.
A really dark green with a red interior looks fine. And actually kind of common, to be honest. But it could be black too. You don't know until you actually wash it off of what color it actually is.
I mean, that car was gorgeous.
Oh yeah, like such beautiful cars. Like there's actually a guy out in
See,
yeah. I've always wanted to talk to him because he has this 50s Cadillac. This is like a Tri-5 Cadillac.
What does Chevy mean by I need the OX?
I have no idea.
But yeah, I know exactly where that car sat. Now, whether or not it still exists, or if that building still exists, I don't know. I have not been down in that area in forever. And as far as we can tell, there was nothing newer in that garage than the mid-'80s.
That's really cool. I'd love to find collections like that.
I think I think that like we don't know what happened to the original owner of that property, but like I said, everything in that garage, there was trash bags over top of stuff that as soon as you touched the trash bag, it just turned to powder.
See, that would be something that it'd be interesting to try.
It was not tan. I guarantee you it was not tan.
Yeah, it wasn't tan. No, he just said he was wrong. But although the green, it still could be green, but it'd be a really dark, like hunter green, like very, very dark green. But like that'd be interesting, because if you could like go back there and actually film that'd be so cool.
I can't. I mean, technically, we did not gain entry in a manner that would have been cooperative with filming.
Fair enough. Well, that's also the one thing is that you get in there, you don't say where you are or how you got in. You just go in there and you film.
I don't know if I can still get in there. I don't know. I mean, number one, I don't know if I'm skinny enough to still fit in there. The way that we got in, there was not much space. Again, we also didn't touch anything when we were in there of significant, like whatever. Went in there to document to see what was there. And then our second thing was we wanted to see if we can find or prove that the property was abandoned. Because if you can prove the property is abandoned, you can apply to acquire said property.
Yeah. Well, and something, because, I mean, because you could find, like, do you still know where it is?
Ish, but I don't know the address. Like, the thing is I have to go through certain measures to allow the supposed current owners to claim that they still are owners. And I think I have to put it in a newspaper. I have to try to send a letter to the last known address of the owners. And some bunch of other things that I have to do. And then I can apply whatever. But like I said, I'd have to go to talk to a lawyer. And the thing is at this point, is it worth? Because I don't even know if this place is still standing.
Well, see, one thing is, like, I just, like, if you can, like, I would just try and see, hey, is the place still there? And then if so, try and track down the owners. Like, even if you can't, and if they don't exist, then you can go through the whole thing of, going through a lawyer and stuff like that. But, like, because even just for, like, a YouTube opportunity to film barn finds like that is incredible. Like, those are the ones that, like, hey, you're trying to, find content that you can film? That could explode on YouTube.
Yeah, at that point, though, we weren't trying to get that car noticed at all.
No, I get that. I'm just saying, though.
I don't remember what street that was.
You could always try and find it. Like, that's the beauty of that. Like, and that's one of those things. Like, I'd love to find a collection like that. And here in Alberta, it's a little different because we don't have titles, in, like, Canada, period. So if you actually find an abandoned car out in the field, you can just grab it. Like, because it's bill of sale only. It's pretty bizarre. That's one of these things, like, and I've always wanted to stop, because there's a bunch of, like, abandoned farms in the middle of nowhere that I've always wanted to stop at, just to take a look. Because you never know what you would find. And, so, something actually, I shared, a picture in the live chat, and I actually do have a short little video on it on YouTube. So, my Capri has gotten absolutely god-awful gas mileage for an inline 6 ever since I got it. And I've been kind of racking my brain as to why, because I thought that, like, with the issues that it was having with going through oil so quickly, that the fuel pump was leaking gas into the oil pan, so I replaced that, and did a couple other little things like that. But the thing is, I pulled the spark plug out just to take. I only took one out. I didn't take them all out because I knew if one's gonna look like that, they're all gonna look like that. Didn't need to pull it out.
No, it wasn't. By the way, Will, it wasn't by my old job.
But I pulled the plug out, and it's covered in nothing but black. It's like, okay, so yeah, this thing is running extremely rich. Like, I knew it was running rich. I didn't realize it was running that rich. So, my next thing, which this is probably what it is, it's just I don't really want to do this, but I'll have to, is, so the carburetor, it's likely that the power valve is leaking gas into the carb and just putting way too much fuel down it. But it's weird because, like, it starts so good and it drives actually really nice. It's just idles like ass once it's actually warmed up because of how much fuel is going down it. So I have two options really, and I'm not sure which one I'm gonna go down. It depends how cheap I can get a carb rebuild kit for that carburetor. Because either I rebuild the carburetor and put it back on with the 1 barrel, or do the 2 barrel swap. It depends, like I said, on the rebuild kit. I just need to price one out.
Yeah.
Because I don't. If it's gonna be like $50 for a rebuild kit, I'm just gonna say screw it and do the 2 barrel swap.
Isn't that still gonna make it run rich though?
No. Why would it? If it's
got now 2 barrels feeding fuel into it.
Yeah, if the power valve is leaking in the carburetor, which, I don't know. I thought it did, but maybe it actually doesn't. I don't know. Like, it's got to be the carburetor though, because there's nothing else that would do that. Like, because yeah, like I have my 2-barrel, which it wouldn't run. It didn't run rich in my other car. In fact, it ran a tad lean, which means I gotta rejet that carburetor. But that's fine. I've got jets to rejet it if I need to. Because I think I have 40, the equivalent of 48s in it, but I have jets that can jet it up to like a 52, so, or even a 50, which I'll probably end up doing if I swap it in. Because that's a good carburetor that I have there. I just need to go through that carb though, a little bit, but it's really not bad at all. That's my old motocross carburetor that I had on my Mustang. And I have another adapter, just it's a different adapter than I have on Stitch, so I'd have to look into that.
Geez, you can't even really get a good look of this freaking.
Hi, buddy.
That is the building that car is sitting in.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, it's possible that building is. Although that does say 2023 on it.
Yeah. And it looks like it has a for sale sign on it. But it doesn't mean that the car's still in it.
I mean, hey, you could, if there's a for sale sign on there,
now
you could always, you can call and be like, hey, I heard that there was this old Cadillac in there. I'd love to take a look at it.
Yeah, no, it's from 11 years ago, this picture.
Oh. Why does it, was that just...
Because if you look down, I don't want to show the actual address, so hold on. Because, again, still don't want... No. I don't really want the location of this thing. And if it's been forgotten about, I don't want anybody else to know about it. So, let me see if I can cover up.
Oh, it says 11 years ago. Okay.
So 11 years ago would have been around the time that I was there.
It'd be really funny, though, if, like, when the Gilbert car was driving by, that it actually spotted you on the property.
Yeah.
If it was, like, the same day.
But yeah, that's the building. Pretty sure. Yeah, because it's got the slidey doors on it. It's got a man door in the slidey door, but it has the big barn, like the not the opening outdoors, but the ones that slid on the tracks to the side.
Yeah. No, it's one of those things where even if you can't acquire anything off the property, you'd be surprised at how many people are okay with you filming as long as you don't say where it is. Because I've done that a few times on my channel, to be honest.
Come here.
Even just finding stuff for sale and stuff like that. It's just a cool collection in that regard. And of course,
it is, but again, it's not my property.
But like I said, it'd be worth investigating. Like not going yourself, but just figuring out. Property. Go through the proper channel.
Will says if it's where he's thinking, it's not there anymore. He was past there a few months ago, and they had 4-wheelers in there, and it was open. I can send him the pin.
Yeah.
And see if he can.
Yeah, William says unless they had it covered, too.
No, I lied. That was not the right pin.
Yeah, I mean, there's there's a junkyard that I want to go back to. It's probably not going to happen this year, but maybe next year. Because there's some stuff in there that I kind of want. And that video will explode just like it did last time. Like, I don't even have to share it out because it'll just do it on its own.
Yeah, I think that second pin that I sent was the right one.
Like, of that big ass junkyard that I did that video of last summer. Like, I want to get back there, to be honest, and I want to film everything. Which, normally, so, from what I've heard, like, because people tried to tell me, hey, he's not going to like that you posted that, and I'm going, I told him that I was filming, he didn't care. The thing is, he only cares if you're going down there just to film, he doesn't like you. But if you're going down there to, hey, if you film a bit and buy stuff off of him, he's cool with it.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, I'd want to try and buy some taillights off him, to be honest, too. Because he's got a couple of things.
I don't know how they would have that car covered in that area with where it was sitting. Because it took up most of that freaking space.
Sir, why are you attacking me? You got claws, you got these talons. Look at those. Talon kitty.
Like, it's hard to see the background in, like, this one you can clearly see. You can see both the walls in this picture with where that car is sitting. It's freaking trying not to get the glare, but there's no way I can get the not glare.
Yeah, I can't really see with the glare and stuff.
Yeah.
But I can see the car, and I can see something, but I can't tell if that's a wall or what that is.
Oh, here, I can post it to...
Yeah, post it to the live chat. Or send it to me personally, I don't care. Yeah, see, that's just one of those things where I'd love to find properties like that. Just to explore and to even film them too. That's one thing, I'm always thinking of what I'm gonna do next, which I gotta get a hold of a guy on TikTok that I came across, because actually, I might be, this coming weekend, filming a really cool car for YouTube. Which is, R33 Nissan Skyline GTR.
Look in the live stream chat. I shared it.
Did you? Okay, hang on. I need to do this. Messenger. Oh yeah, it's kind of tight in there. Yeah.
See if I can brighten up the image or all.
Yeah, I can see it there. There we go. That's all good. I mean, I can...
It might be green.
But...
It might actually have been green. But then again, it could just be playing with the...
You say you got passed by an old Nissan convertible this morning. You have to be a little more specific than that. There could be a lot of cars. And depending on what you consider old. Wait, oh wait, you're talking about like 60s Nissans? Like the old Datsun 1600 convertibles? Yo, that's dope. I don't think I've ever seen one in person. Those things are sweet as hell.
So I brightened up the picture and whatever, so you can see the background a lot easier. And that car might be green. Because once I brightened up the picture, it looks pretty green.
Yeah, a lot of the cars back then weren't actually black. A lot of them were like a green or a blue.
Harvey was hauling a tree.
Ah, fair enough. Still, if it's a 60s Datsun Roadster, that's pretty cool regardless. Like, you know, there's
I'm like, what am I looking at on the screen behind you? Oh, it's the live stream. Duh.
Oh, yeah. That's what you were saying.
I was watching Motion. I caught Motion, and I'm like, oh, never mind. I know what that is.
Yeah, no, it's a simulation. You know, it's okay. Ugh. Okay, so obviously it was a Nissan Club thing. If they were doing that, that's cool. Actually, I like that. Um, actually, the other day I saw a super cool lineup. I was just like kind of amazed, and I should have filmed it while I was driving by it, but I didn't. I saw every generation of Corvette drive past me, all in a row. Cool.
Nikki asked in the group chat. He says, "Is that a new project?" Oh, I wish. I don't think I could afford that car, even if it was.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's one thing to afford the car; it's the next thing to afford the parts.
I wouldn't. I probably would have just left it as it is.
Yeah, but I mean, like, even just trying to find some of the parts, like, say it needs, like, a water pump or something like that, you know, that, like, you'd probably have to get the water pump rebuilt, which, like, I don't even know if you can find the actual parts to rebuild the water pump. You might have to get things custom made and stuff, right? It's stuff like that is what I'm talking about. It's not like later on where commonality to parts is a lot nicer in Cadillacs, because then, I don't know. That car probably shares almost nothing with the common GM.
Oh. Yeah, I mean, I like I said, the fact that car might still possibly be there, I doubt it.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that barn didn't fall down on it.
See, Harvey, to be honest, 38 Pontiac sounds a little easier to find parts for than a late 40s Caddy. Just because Pontiac is closer to Chevrolet than Cadillac is.
Pontiac completely different different drivetrain parts back then. They had their own stuff, so it wouldn't have been compatible with Chevy.
But also, they sold a lot more Pontiacs than they did Cadillacs.
Maybe.
Right? Oh no, they definitely did.
I had a parts catalog back when I had my Caddy, the engine, that had all that stuff. I mean, down to seals and shit for engines and stuff. They sold those parts. They sold parts for some of the other freaking really obscure stuff from back then. Shit begins with a P. But not Pontiac. Shit, was it Kenter? Kenter was the name of the parts catalog, I do believe.
I don't know. I mean, there would have been. There was a few different catalogs, because like Pratt and Whitney did have a catalog for a while too. Canter is what Harvey said.
Yeah, I thought that's what it was. Yeah, it is. It is Cantor, and they sold all kinds of old school stuff. Okay, so if that was, let's say, a 1949 Cadillac.
Yeah, because that would have been from about 40, like 42, right up until about 49. I would think, possibly up to a 50, but I don't think so. Just trying to remember when they did the model changes properly for Cadillac.
Well, here's a 1948. I'm trying to compare that to definitely not 1948. Let's go older. That looks more it. So this is a 1947 Series 62.
Yeah, that's a very, very similar car.
Now,
could be it.
Could also have been a 46.
Because, yeah, I think Cadillac didn't have a new model until 48 or 49.
Yeah, so it depends on what small changes there could have been. Because, there's a 1946.
Yeah, it'd just be like the grill and some of the trim and, actually some of the body panels might be different too. Probably are.
But yeah, that's basically a nice clean version of what was in that barn.
Yeah.
He is looking for my uncle's old Challenger. He last knew it was sitting at the VFW. Yeah, like I said, I would never be able to get that vehicle anyway. I mean, it was a pipe dream at best when I first thought about it. There's no way. But, I mean, and at this point, where would I put it? I mean, I've already got cars sitting in buddy's yards already.
Just put it in your backyard this way.
It wouldn't fit in my backyard. Like, it would not fit. I know the size of that car. It was pretty... Yeah, I think 48 is when they brought out the new design because... 48, when we were looking at it, had a different body style on it.
Yeah.
So it looks like they kept the body style up to 47. But if I remember correctly, when we were looking for that car, it could have been, I think, either an inline 6 or the V12. But the likelihood of it being the V12 is pretty rare. Or inline 12. Was it in V12 or inline 12? The fuck?
V12. Like, there definitely would have been a V12, not an inline 12.
Right.
Because even Cadillac having an inline 6 is surprising. I wouldn't be surprised if it was like an inline 8. But even then, it's Cadillac. They had V8s in the 30s, if I'm not mistaken.
Engine would have been a 346 cylinder L-head V8 that delivered 150 horsepower.
Yeah, there you go. See, that sounds about right. To be honest, because like inline 6 in a Caddy just doesn't sound right. They always had V's, no matter what it was. When you go back far enough, it wasn't. But that's Which and fun fact, did you know that Cadillac was technically made by Henry Ford?
No, I did not.
Yeah. So Henry Ford actually made 2 different car companies, but the first one he he just didn't like what the board was trying to do, so then he just kind of like stepped back and was like, no, I don't want to do this. And they renamed the company to Cadillac. There you go. William just said he can make it fit. Come on, you can just you can pull your Trans Am out and stick the caddy in the garage. There you go.
Probably.
Yeah. Just leave that all exposed outside. Woohoo!
Especially with the window down and not being able to go up.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, I've seen what damage it did to that other Firebird that I was interested in buying. Because I didn't realize that the window was the way it was, and the door was fucked. Because one thing is, if that window wasn't smashed out of it, and the interior wasn't full of like the leaves and who knows what else, I may have actually bought that Firebird that day. I didn't have the money for it. That was a Formula 400 from like the mid 70s, I think it was. If you remember
the red one
that I was looking at.
The red one or the white one?
Would have been the white one, I think.
I don't remember what nose was on that.
That's what it was. Sorry, it wasn't a 400, it was 403.
So old. So that means it was a 1979.
Yeah, I think so. Actually,
they did not put the 403 in 1978. 403 was the first year for the 403 was 1979. Do believe they also put it in 1980, but I don't remember.
Okay, fair enough.
But yeah, it was to replace the Pontiac 400. Because the Pontiac 400 last year for the Pontiac 400 was supposed to be 1978, but they had a bunch left over. But you could only get them with a manual transmission in 1979. Any automatic car, the biggest engine you can get for the automatic car was the old 403, which was so the Pontiac engine in 1979 made around 230 to 260 horsepower. The 403 made 180.
Yeah. And now, actually, because William is talking about an inline 8, a lot of companies had inline 8s, and Buick was one of the most anonymous for it.
Yeah. What was it? The Rocket, I think, was the inline 8?
No. Rocket was for the V8 later.
Or Rocket was the V8.
But actually, and Rocket wasn't Buick. That was Oldsmobile.
Oh, that's right. So Rocket 88, isn't it?
Yeah, it started with the 88 in 1958. Yeah. If I remember correctly, that's when they put the Rocket name to it. Or it may have been earlier than that, but... Yeah, actually, Harvey, they had an interesting process with the crank, but also, if you think about it, so the inline 8, it's a massive engine. It's huge. That crank is god-awful long.
And not to mention, the other thing though is we're not talking today's standards is big horsepower. Those cars weren't seeing big horsepower. They were more worried about torque than horsepower back then because they were trying to get a big ass heavy car moving. So it wasn't about horsepower.
Oh yeah, and those because those inline 8s, it's an inline 8 that's 500 cubic inches. It's huge. Somewhere around there, anyways. I don't know the exact cube. It would have been give or take around that.
Hey, if you've seen any of the old race cars, a lot of them had inline 8s and things like that in them. Those things are fun to watch run. Let's see if I can find a link. There's one that I used to watch, a channel that I used to watch that had one, and they fired it up. It was freaking cool. Because they don't all fire at once. So you'll get 1 or 2 cylinders up and going, and then you'll get another one up and going, and it's really weird. They don't all like get up and going at once, like today's engines and stuff do.
Oh yeah, I've seen those like that before, and it's really cool to see those old ones, especially when they don't have like a valve cover on them. And so you get to see the rockers actually working, you know. But it is wild though to think like there's no valve cover on that. Like, how is that good for the motor? Like, the reason why we have that is so that like oil doesn't splash out and contaminants don't get in. It's the reason why we have that. But and for some reason back then they didn't care. Like,
they might not have known better back then. Not a matter of care. They just might not have known any better.
It might be that, yeah. Makes sense.
Come on, trial and error takes a long time.
True, it does. Like, and the inline 8, like, because the Buick inline 8 was still a flathead design too. So you had this freaking massive head on the thing that was all like one piece, and it's a flathead that just cast iron. So it's valve, not overhead valve. And yeah, like fully dressed, it's like 700 or 800 pounds. Like they're just stupidly heavy. There actually is at that junkyard that I was at in the summertime. Yeah, that's the one I was thinking of actually. Yeah.
Fucking things are nasty. Those things sound so cool. So that particular one is on the Cool Car TV channel, and it's called 8 Insane Vintage Cars Powered by Aero Engines.
Yeah, because a lot of those had airplane motors in them.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, these airplane motors, they weren't like, like 5, 6, 7 liters. No. They're like 27, 40-liter engines. Like, it's just insane. Yeah, see, Harvey, I know that the Chevrolet was one of the first ones to actually put overhead valves in their motor, period. Because he said Chevrolet straight 6 in 1929. And yeah, it's quite surprising that Chevrolet did it before pretty much everyone else did. Like, Cadillac did it too. Near around the same time. But everybody else was just stubborn, and they kept their flatheads for a while, and I don't understand why. Like, it's surprising, but that's the one thing that, like, people don't talk about at all. Because everybody talks about, like, in the 30s. Yeah. Like, it's just so awesome to see that. And just the fireballs coming off of it. Like, and it takes a while to start some of these motors too properly. There we go.
It's just wicked.
Oh yeah, it's amazing.
It's a Rolls-Royce tank engine.
Yeah, no, that being a Rolls-Royce, because yeah, that could have been in a few different things.
Well, like I said, it's a Rolls-Royce tank engine.
Yeah, it's just cool. Well, it's like, I don't know if you've seen that picture, and it drives me nuts of the inaccuracies in it. So, I'm assuming there's a picture that has circulated online for a number of years. It's a 69 Mustang that somebody stretched the front end out of and put in a big, it's either a V8 or a V12 out of, it's a Ford motor from a tank. And the meme actually says that it came out of a Sherman. Well, that's incorrect. Because if you actually look at the engine, it's actually out of a Patton. It drives me nuts as an actual historical fan that way. But, that's the one I was thinking of. The Ford GAA, yeah. Which was not in the Sherman. That was in the Patton. There's this picture. Like, you can probably find it if you Google search it.
Yeah, but guess what? It's saying that it's in the Sherman and is gonna view more views than if they said it was in a Patton.
Well, I don't know why, but it drives me nuts. You know, it's like, well, even the because in the live chat, I posted a screenshot of just the inane thing. I'd have to find that.
42 liter, 2,600 cubic inch. Hold on. I'm trying to read it. 2,600 cubic inch Packard 4M V12. Developing 1,500 base horsepower. This one's different. I don't know what this says. I didn't read it.
Yeah, those things are just insane, and so that's
an open tappet engine.
Yeah, it is. You know, and well, because the one thing is, like, you said that's like a 412 cubic inch.
No, the other one was the first one that I showed you.
Oh, okay. Because like there are some of these, you know, that have like well over 45 liter motors. It's just insane.
That was the 42 liter, the first one that I showed you. I can't read the writing on these other ones while I have it up here. This is fucking cool. Chrysler made an engine with 5 inline 6s bolted in. Yeah. I mean, that's just like me, the fucking, just grouping together the fucking rotaries, man.
Except for grouping rotaries makes a little more sense, as opposed to making a...
Well, there's those people that freaking sandwiched two LSs together, but they lopped off so it wouldn't be 2 V8s. They were lopping the front ends off of V8s and making them more like 2 V6s stuck together.
Yeah. And the oil pans face to the center. So they made a radial that, the cylinders went out that way. With inlines, like, that's bizarre.
It's almost like an airplane engine.
Yeah, like I said, radial is what I'm talking about, right? Airplane motors are radial motors, typically. That is so weird.
What are you doing? Now, I'm going to have to end this soon-ish because he's going to need to go out to the bathroom. Oh, where did it go? I had one that was a radial engine stuffed in front of a freaking hot rod.
Oh, you mean I think it's a 48 Fargo has the radial motor?
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure it's a Fargo, and it's bare metal finish, and it's you like riveted together.
No, I'll tell you in a minute as soon as I find it. If I find it.
I think it was like a 38 or something like that.
I might not find it.
Yeah, unless it was a Chevy. I thought it was a Dodge, or like Fargo.
Russian radial engine. Maybe it's not actually in something. I thought it was I thought this was bolted to it.
39 Plymouth. If you search up there's somebody that did a 39 Plymouth with a 7-cylinder radial motor.
Is it not gonna focus on that?
Doesn't look like it.
I mean, there's clearly letters there to focus on. There it goes.
Yeah, if you type in, if you want to find one that's actually put in a proper vehicle that's not...
Yeah, this is just an engine stand. Yeah. But when I saw the screenshot, it looked like it was in a vehicle.
Yeah, if you type in 39 Plymouth radial engine, you'll find it.
Yeah.
Which I forgot that, yeah, Plymouth actually made pickup trucks, fun fact.
It's more looking at the weird shit.
Well, hey, it's like, Mazda put a rotary in a pickup truck, because of course they did. Back in the RPU, I think they called it. And to be honest, it was just really, really cool.
I know this car. This is my buddy.
Hey, that's cool. Yeah.
Full on classic body fucking Firebird race car. And he's overseas.
That is cool.
And he's not nice to that car. He pushes that car. Because I have him on my Facebook. He wrecked it hard a couple years ago and rebuilt the whole thing.
Good night, William.
I need to go to bed soon too, so.
Yeah, that's fair. And just as Bradley joins the chat.
I think it's Bollinger. Brad would know. The guy that has the classic white and blue Firebird that races it in the classic series. I think it's Roger Bollinger, probably. I think. Yeah, it is. Yeah, Roger Bollinger. Told you I knew that car. That's off his profile picture.
That's freaking awesome. That's the one thing, because I'd love to build a really cool classic race car like that, but
I mean, just look at that. Oh,
it's just sexy.
oh.
And for me, other than a '69 Firebird.
And it's running a shoot, what's that, the Pontiac race engine brand that I want to put in the TA. Butler. It's running a Butler performance engine.
Yeah. I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah. It's never a good day when that is not attached to the wheel anymore.
It's fine. Just JB it. You're fine. Bust out the welder. Yeah. I want to do race car things, but I don't have race car money, so that's why I don't do race car things.
Right? I'd love to do race car things, too.
Yeah, it's so funny because people are like, hey, you should build a race car. I'm like, you gotta freaking give me the money to not only build it, but to also trailer it and to, make sure it doesn't, break. And if it does break...
it's all fun and dandy until something goes wrong.
Yeah, and I mean, you can build cheap race cars, don't get me wrong. You can.
Oh, yeah.
Because even Stitch, I'll do race car-y things, but I'm not gonna build it out the ass so that it's actually reliable doing race car-y things. Is Mondello Buick, huh? What are you talking about there, Harvey?
There's his car before it was a race car.
That actually kind of looks like it was a nice car, too. I mean, now, one picture from looks like the 90s, or maybe even 80s, doesn't,
It's a nice car now. I don't know what you're talking about.
But what I mean by that, though, is it's normally you don't take a nice car and make it into a race car. Normally you get a car that's not that great, and you make it into a race car.
I'm trying to find a picture of when he wrecked it. Oh, these are all These are all photos, that's why. Uh,
See, I mean, and at some point, I would like to play around with some GMs at some point, but when that's gonna be, I don't know. Oof. That's quite the wreck.
he put it back together, though.
Yeah, I mean, good for him, but, that's quite the wreck. Oh, speaking of which, my friend Natalie, with her truck that she wrecked a couple weeks back, already started, and by by Sunday, it might actually be put back together as a properly running driving truck that doesn't pull hard left.
There you go.
Yeah, well, because she got a parts truck. The parts truck that she got is just like, dude, you just bought another truck that's RV. Literally, it's the exact same truck. Looks identical. And, because needed a few things, and, because those Rangers, the first-gen Rangers, they actually use a twin I-beam front suspension. Which is surprising considering the trucks got rid of the twin I-beam, the full-size trucks, in the late 80s. But the Ranger kept using it. And the one I-beam was actually bent. So, and I already knew that as soon as I saw that, I'm like, oh, you're going to have to find a new, you're going to have to find one of those because it's not a wearable part. They don't sell those new. And so, yeah, and then she found this entire truck, and they're going to use it for a lot of, rust repair and stuff like that, too, on hers. Which is awesome. Because she was, asking me about a few different vehicles that were for sale and whatnot, for cheap vehicles for her, and I'm just saying, everything she sent me, I'm just saying, that's just going to give you problems not long down the road, and so is that, just no. Because, she showed me, I think it was a Cadillac DTS, one of the early ones with the North Star in it. And especially early North Star, you don't want to touch those because they go through head gaskets pretty easily. And when you need to replace a head gasket, guess what? You have to drop the motor out. With, Cadillac's infinite wisdom and trying to build a V8 like that. So stupid.
I swear engineers are just there to piss off fucking mechanics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's one of these things, there's a reason why I drive what I drive. I don't touch modern vehicles for a reason. And now something, because it's for sale, and it's probably going to go cheap, and I don't think it's going to go cheap enough for me to buy it, though. But I just freaking use it as, a winter beater for a while, and then probably just sell it in the summertime. Because it's an 85 Tercel wagon 4-wheel drive stick. It's got, 220k on it, and still has rust, but nothing major, and runs and drives. It's at Ox right now. It's only at $340 so far. It's not bad. Yeah. Shiny. Pretty shiny.
Yep, he drives a Pontiac in it.
I mean, the North Star might be better than those, but that's not saying much, because those are garbage too. But, North Star, at least it makes a little more power than those do. I will say that.
Did anybody see Chris's new toy?
I don't think I did.
He's got a Jeep.
He bought a Jeep.
Yeah.
I'm assuming it's a Wrangler or a TJ or something like that.
Yeah, like a
or a CJ.
No, I'll find a picture of it. Gotta get past all his posts. I can't share.
I bet you do, because there's a lot of Jeeps that are absolutely frickin' terrible. So, yeah, like that's the one thing of, you know, especially after Jeep got or like that Chrysler got acquired by Fiat, the Jeep just went down the toilet quality. The only decent Jeep you can buy right now is the Wrangler, and even then, a Wrangler is like, I used to say that the Wrangler was the most overpriced vehicle in the market, and now it's no longer true. But it's still another Wrangler because it's the Gladiator.
Chat.
Oh. Why does it have neon lights on it? It's a,
They're just called rock lights.
Yeah, fairly new. Yeah, that's a fairly new Jeep style thing. Yeah, it's kind of cool. I mean, it's not. The wheels aren't my style, but it's still cool.
I think he traded his boat for it.
Yeah, because that looks like not too terribly old, like within the last 10 years or so. Like, those wheels just, ugh. I think those wheels are butt ugly. But they just don't match it at all, in my opinion. And now, that surprises me, Harvey, that you can't find an 8-speed transmission for a Jeep right now. That's shocking. Like, can nobody rebuild it? Or is it just one of those weird things with those? I think there is ZF 8-speed. And because you think they'd be the similar transmissions to the 8-speeds they put in everything in. You can't buy parts? Oh, Chrysler. I mean, I know you didn't design the transmission, but Chrysler. That's sad.
Hey, if you can't buy parts of it, you're going to go buy a new vehicle.
Ugh. See, and now it's so funny because they talk about, you know, with going to electrification with vehicles because it's less wasteful and blah, 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 blah.
It's not. It's all fucking mumbo jumbo. Come on.
Oh, it is. But even, like, stuff like that, you know, because how much of that, like, I do wonder, like, in these electric ones as an example, how much of that is also, like, you can't buy parts for it either?
Not serviceable. Well, I mean, a lot of the newer transmissions are not serviceable. They don't even freaking make parts for them because they don't expect you to. Once it's done, it's done. Apparently they're too complicated to take apart. That, you know, and need too many special tools that there's no point making parts for them. You just go buy another one. Which again, to me that's so fucking wasteful.
Oh, it is.
You know, I mean, that's kind of like Apple products for the longest freaking time. They made them freaking so hard to take apart, so that way, you know, instead of fixing the screen or something when they bust, you just go get a new phone. You either dealt with it, you know, forever, or you got a new phone, because a lot of cell phone places couldn't fix them because you literally needed a laser to get the back glass off.
That is so stupid.
You literally had to burn the adhesive out of it.
You know, it's like, you want to know the dumbest thing? So a lot of new vehicles actually don't have a dipstick for the oil anymore. Like, seriously? It's like, what happens if there's an oil leak and you want to, like, check it? You can't.
Torque converter is half the cost of the whole transmission that we can't buy.
That is so dumb. Like, and now, okay, this sounds stupid, But can you buy like an aftermarket performance converter for one of those? Because so, I wonder if that's your answer. Just, the only problem is you stick it in just some random Jeep and be like, oh yeah, by the way, this has a 2500 stall. Good luck.
But it moves. Cavalier was the same thing. The only way you could check the oil level in a Cavalier is you fed a tube into the transmission through one of the portholes, and you had to run it in a certain way, and then you could check the level of the transmission by how far the fluid came up the tube. So the oil would balance itself out and raise the same height in the tube as it was in the transmission. And you had to measure how high that fluid level was in the tube to find out how much fluid was in the transmission.
See, I can understand if it was a manual transmission.
No,
sort
our
of.
Cavalier was not a manual. It was a 5-speed automatic, 4-speed automatic.
Were they
I don't know what 2002. It was a 2002 Ecotec with an automatic.
Okay, yeah, I don't know them that well to really know. That's fine. Because the one thing I do
4-speed. Harvey says it's a 4-speed.
4-speed. Okay, that's what
I missed the transmission that was in our green Kia though. That was a 6-speed.
Yeah, I mean that's a lot newer though, so it makes sense.
Yeah, but the thing is the same car 1 year. By the way, did I ever tell you that we found out that the gray car was also a Kia Soul Plus? We always thought it was a base model. No, it is the performance model for its year, but it is so much like, okay, so the 2011 top model is like here. The 2012 top model, as far as options and the things that it came with, was like up here. That's like in 1 year they made so many improvements because we have, like I said, we have a 2011 and the green one was a 2012, and the differences between them is absolutely crazy. Yeah, the 6-speed. I'll tell you what, that car was fun all the way up until the deer smacked it. Do not kiss a deer with a Kia Soul. It does not end well for either.
Yeah, no. I mean, lately deer are very attracted to my Capri. I keep seeing them before they jump in front of the car, so I slow down. But
yeah. I didn't have a chance.
Today, it's kind of funny because I was friend of mine was messaging me on Messenger, and I'm like, okay, I can't type back to you, so I'm just gonna do a voice text back as I'm driving, and I'm just driving along and talking about stuff, and then all of a sudden, just like, oh, there's a deer. Hey, no, just you stay. It's kind of funny.
We found 3 porcupines on the side of the road today. Obviously, they had unalived themselves on a car, but 3 of them.
Well, and actually, I remember there was this video on TikTok earlier of there was this porcupine that was just wanting to unalive itself because there was a woman in a truck. I think it was a newer Dodge, and the porcupine kept wanting to go in front of the front wheel, and she kept backing it up, just like, no, I don't want a flat tire, no, I don't want to run you over. Like, for about a minute and a half of the video, then finally the porcupine decides to go off to the side of the road. No big deal.
Yeah.
It's like
somebody is begging to go outside, so I'm gonna have to end the live stream here shortly.
Well,
before I end up having to clean up the reason why he wants to go outside.
Yeah, well, if you need to end the live, we can end the live. It's okay.
Yeah, I want to end the conversation first, so I don't want to just cut people off.
Well, here's the problem. Here's the problem. It's us. We can talk all day long with each other.
I know.
That's the problem.
I know.
So.
Get your gambles in.
Yeah. Plus, also, like I gotta clean myself up for tomorrow because I need to meet that guy hopefully in Olds tomorrow for my header. So,
Yeah. And I need to get some sleep too, because we are taking Mr. Smokey over here to his new home tomorrow. Hopefully. Still in Marietta, Georgia till Monday. Ugh. At least you weren't up here. Bloomsburg got freaking rained out like all fucking week. Bloomsburg's our biggest, is like the biggest fair in Pennsylvania. And it runs from Friday to the Saturday of the next week. And like most of the week, it rained. It's just totally killed it. But stop flashing your monies. I had monies until I went to the fair. I no longer have said monies.
Oh, I haven't smelled money like that in a while. So there's an interesting thing with some bills, not every single bill.
That you can get high because they have white powder on them?
No. Some Canadian bills that are this newer style, which is all you see now. You don't see the older ones anymore. But they smell like maple.
Yeah. Brad, you were down here on Tuesday, which means you were less than 20 minutes from my house. You could have came down here and got this book that I've been sitting here holding on to. You know?
Well, that's when you know, that's when you can actually find said book, because it took you forever to send mine.
Yeah, I know. Well, it took me forever to dig it out of the garage, too.
Yeah, well, I know. Like, you were supposed to send it to me, you didn't, and then...
Then we moved, then it got stuffed in the garage. I got stuffed in something in the garage. I found it, put it aside, and then it took forever to come inside, and then I sent it to you, and I think I could have bought that book 3 times over for the price that it cost me to ship it to you.
Yeah, but it wouldn't have been signed.
Well, yeah, that was kind of the point. And, you know, a promise is a promise. Even if it takes forever to do it. You know, and the thing is you should know that, Kat. It's a typical guy thing. Yeah, I'll do it, and it's 3 years later. I said I'd do it, and then they finally do it.
Yeah, no. It's okay.
My timeline is different than yours. Jess has a problem with that all the time. I said I'll do it. I just didn't say I'd do it in your timeline.
Yeah, I mean, some things, like, I mean, right now, I still have to swap the, well, actually, there's a slight hiccup with it, because I cannot get underneath my dash with the way my head is right now. That's a problem. Of throttle cable and stick.
Is it because your head's too big?
No. It's all the head stuff that I deal with.
I know. I'm teasing. I kid.
You know, I'm just gonna cry now. Okay, good.
All right, Snowflake.
I mean, I am a millennial.
Technically, so am I, but I am borderline on the freaking Gen X's as well. So.
Yeah, I'm the last of the millennials. So.
Yeah, you're the worst. They just get worse as the freaking millennials go on.
Well, see, that's the interesting thing is, because, like, you know, of the stupid challenges that we had, like, the worst one we ever had was the cinnamon challenge, but then the generation after us did, like, the Tide Pod challenge. Like, bruh. You know, like, how can you one-up the cinnamon challenge? Because the cinnamon challenge, yeah, you could actually die if you did it wrong.
You inhale it, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But then, you know, well, because, yeah, like, the cinnamon challenge was you take a big, like, tablespoonful of it and you eat it. Of cinnamon.
You know, we had these challenges where we would both pull on a freaking rope and see who pulled the other one off the other side. You know, those were challenges we had as kids.
Yeah, we just had to one-up everything, so, you know, and then...
You know, we had those challenges of, you know, see how many people you can tag as they run around and try to avoid you.
I mean, we had stuff like that.
But then again, we also didn't have the freaking idiocy of like Vine and TikTok and social media in general. I mean, it wasn't until we were older that we ended up with even anything like MySpace.
Yeah, see, and
Facebook was not a thing until I was an adult.
Yeah, see, like in Facebook, like I had my first Facebook account in like 2011.
That's about when I had mine, but I was already an adult for like almost 8 years.
Yeah, I wasn't yet. Nowhere near. It would have been 2009 or 2011. I can't remember.
I graduated in 02. In fact, later this month, well, technically, yeah, later this month, because technically it's October, it is officially spooky season. In fact, later this month, we are going to have our belated 20-year anniversary. Because we couldn't have it at our 20-year anniversary because of fucking COVID. Reunion, not anniversary, reunion for high school.
Due to the nature of the school I went to, yeah, there's no reunion unless we make one.
It all depends on your classmates because the school doesn't ever put it on.
Yeah, well, it's just also, well, because of that high school, though, it's just kind of weird because of, well, for one, this high school, like, we didn't really have, like, we had our own sort of, like, guidance counselors with the school.
Okay. I'm just trying to figure out why you and your classmates wouldn't get together to have a reunion, because that's who puts that, like ours. It's
a lot of us were only there for a year. Like, we didn't know each other extremely well at all. It's just one of those things. Like, there's some people that I knew really well. Yeah, there's still some people that I'm friends with, but not many.
We just have one of our classmates are like, well, let's organize this and throw it together, and all right, we're all gonna meet here.
Yeah, like, because my dad, they just had their, what was that, 35th or 40th, something like that, just last month. So.
Yeah, ours is going to be on the 20th, I think. Oh, the problem is I'm 2 hours away. Just damn near 2 hours away from where I grew up.
Well, hey, my dad is a 7-hour drive away from where he grew up.
But
he still does it every year that he can. So.
Well, yeah, I'm going to go try. It just depends on whether or not Jess is going to come with me or not.
Yeah, sir. It's one of those things.
I have hold on, you to see some shit.
But also, like, gotta remember, a lot of these people, like, a lot of us probably wouldn't have gotten along at the time either. It's also, gotta remember, you had to have a problem if you were in the school, like, whether...
Oh, so you're a problem child.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, no, I was just depressed and wanted to kill myself. That's what all that was. But, like, there was people... It was interesting of how many times you heard a kid scream and, like, cuss at a teacher. It happened a lot. And it's amazed how many times they can keep their composure while they're being screamed at like that. It's like, holy, how do you do that? It's amazing. But yeah, it was one of those things. Like, Victoria Park High School in Lethbridge, like, loved it, to be honest. The atmosphere was just so nice. But having said that, because they actually understood a thing called mental health, like no other school ever did. The other schools didn't care. They would only care if you didn't, as long as you didn't attempt anything on school property, they didn't give a shit. I joke about that, but it's actually not inaccurate.
Come on, where is the picture?
Shit, how much money do I even have back in here? I need to count that.
I have no idea.
Yeah, that's why I'm counting. I don't remember how much I've spent. I haven't spent that much, but basically this is all my money for a bit until I sell more stuff. Then when it's ever in my bank account, which is not much.
Go play the lottery.
Yeah, lose my ass. Okay. budgeting out as well for tomorrow. So I'm also gonna buy some stuff in old. While I'm there, hopefully get my header. I mean, I won't be totally upset if I don't get my header tomorrow, to be honest, because I didn't really want to buy it yet. I was waiting for more money, but I do have more money coming in a little bit. Just need to wait for Corey to get his ass up here to buy those quarter windows off me. So I pulled him out of the car. He's paid me half, and when he picks them up, he'll pay the other half. And then that guy that bought, my Capri parts, I'm still waiting for him to pick up the damn hood. Been in my shed for fucking 4 months.
I'm sure it would be helpful if he would pick it up and pay you for it.
Oh, no. The one thing is that hood, he already paid me for it. He just hasn't picked it up yet.
Well, now you got to charge him for storage fees.
I'm not the type of person. Although I am gonna send him a text just like, hey, I really want that thing out of my shed. If you can't pick it up within the next couple of weeks, I even offered like, hey, if you need, as long as you pay for my trip, I will deliver it to you.
So
I'm trying to go to Lethbridge.
This was my 10-year reunion.
Wow.
There you go.
That's something.
So
that hair though.
Yeah, I have no idea where that hair came from. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
I told you I've had it forever.
Yeah. Well, your mohawk right now looks a little better than that one did.
Well, that one was also after that was the end of the night too. The mohawk never looks as good at the end of the night.
I mean, true, but I wasn't getting at that though. I was getting at that like, hey, this mohawk is your natural color and stuff like that, and doesn't look extremely dated because it's not colored.
What do you mean?
Well, in that picture, it looked like it was like red or something.
Yeah, it is because my hair was naturally red.
Oh, is that? Oh, okay. It just went to black.
I'm gray. This isn't black. This is just has product in it. My hair is like a freaking yeah.
Yeah, I didn't say black. I said blonde.
It's dirty blonde. It's more like a gray.
Yeah, it's still dirty blonde.
See?
It's not black.
See?
Wow. You see, and now you just look, because, you look a lot more mature than you did back then, even with the mohawk, because, like, if I saw you back then, like, as I see that, all I can think of just, like, that guy's probably a douche. Compared to now,
No.
You have a lot more mature of a face. Compared to back then.
This guy looks like a douche.
True. I've met people that look exactly like that, and they were assholes. I've met a lot of those.
Then again, you don't want to see me without any facial hair at all. I look really weird.
Yeah, you look like you're like 14.
Mm-hmm.
Ugh.
And at one point, I can't find it.
What? Why is it doing it like that? Yeah, that's fine. What's the info? Ran when parked. Oh, okay, that's great.
And then of course you have at one point I had just uber long hair.
Oh yeah. That's right. My dad just showed me a truck for sale at that same auction. There's 0 bids on it. It's an 89 Chevy half-ton with a 5-speed in it. And, that's some long hair. It looks a little tatty because like the headliner's hanging down. It's rusty. It says Ranwin Park, which is always great.
Yeah, but Ranwin Park, how long ago? You know, it doesn't take long for an engine to not be able to run when parked. Or after parked, because it all depends on what the weather has done with it.
Yeah, I mean, I would still buy this, though. If it goes like stupid cheap, I'm going to buy it.
Okay, anyway. You're going to have to let us know about the super cheap truck later. I am going to get off of here before I end up cleaning up a mess with the dog.
How am I still sideways? This is weird.
I have no idea, but it's really it's you're not even on. You're like under. You have fallen off of the live stream and are now under it.
There we go. Is that better?
Nope.
I don't know why I'm sideways. This is weird.
You have now been see your phone is now too tired to continue on with the live stream, and it has decided to keel over. Yeah, you need to go up a little higher. Your chin's not there. We go. Now you're in the box.
Wow.
Anyway, we're gonna take this time to leave you guys. There you go. What the hell did you do? You fixed it like immediately.
Yeah, I just touched it. I just touched the phone.
Could have done that like 5 minutes ago.
I know. It's weird.
Anyway, all right. See you later, guys. We will catch you whatever the next time I go live. Maybe next week, maybe the week after. Who knows?
Ciao.
Transition.